And thanks everybody for putting up with our little bit of a late and unusual start today. Today we are going to be joined with, by, and for the cause of the wu-nuwaupu nation. And we're going to have a number of voices from the wu-nuwaupu nation. We're going to be talking about bringing up some critical points about the case of Dr. Malachi Z. York. For many of you, you recognize that name. For some of you, he's a very controversial figure. And, of course, as an African myself, growing up in the land of my forebearers' enslavement, taught in a foreign culture, foreign ideologies, communicating with my people in a foreign language, then controversial nature of my position being here is something that must be always kept on the front burner. Yes, this is all about controversy. But I really want to focus on the critical need for black leadership that does serve to build institutions of transformation. And any person out there who has been a critic of Dr. York, all of the ones that I've ever talked to have all acknowledged that Dr. York, when it comes to institution building, and especially building institutions that build upon the great strengths of African people, that also build institutions that transform the lives and improve the lives of young people, all have agreed that Dr. York has been a very effective, affective leader on that point. So therefore, you know that the Conscious Rasta is going to be supportive of the wu-nuwaupu nation as an institution of transformation. Today we're going to be joined by a number of voices from the wu-nuwaupu nation, and we're joined in a conference call. It's a little bit of an unusual hookup, but I think we're going to be able to make things just as smooth as possible. First of all, I want to welcome to the conversation my sister Kafri, who's joining us on a conference call out of Osset City, formerly known as Atlanta. Sister Kafri, welcome to the conversation today.
Thank you.
How is my sister doing today?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm blacknificent, as we like to say around here. And I know you've been working hard to pull all of this together, and even all morning, making a lot of phone calls and sending files and things around. There are a number of other voices who are going to be joining us also, and I'll allow you to introduce those other voices in. Can you just give us a little background on the reason for today's special program, a special appeal on behalf of Dr. Malachi Z. York?
Yes. We are currently dealing with a medical transfer case in Colorado, where we have family out there who has hired an attorney to be able to get Dr. York transferred, because right now he has angioedema, which is he suffers from swelling of the face and of the tongue and the mouth, and he also has hives. And actually, this is something that he's always had, and the BOP, the Bureau of Prisons, they know this, and they have it documented, and we actually successfully subpoenaed them and have all of the documents that show that they do know this. But over all of these years that he has been here, he hasn't been receiving the proper care. Mm-hmm. So it is really, not even in our opinion, but the way it's looking is like they're torturing him medically. Mm-hmm. By allowing him to suffer in his cell. Because when an attorney goes in, she sees that his face is swollen. And as a matter of fact, if you go to www.transferyork.com, you'll be able to read about, and you'll be able to read the case that's there, where it shows all of the different things that have been subpoenaed from the BOP. Also, medical records showing that he was airlifted from the prison to a 45-minute away facility to a hospital just because he blacked out from it, and it causes this asphyxiation in the throat. So he could die in minutes from this, and this is basically why we're having this event today, to ask the people who know that Dr. York is innocent and that he was set up to help us with this fundraiser. And you will be able to donate at the www.transferyork.com webpage. And also there is a web link there, once you get there, that talks about the Florence Supermax and how it's called a clean hell, and how people actually live in there, and how they have them in isolation, which is basically to break down their strength as leaders.
Mm-hmm. Now,
that's
when we look at the case of Dr. York, and we'll talk about the merits of the case as we go through our conversation, but when we look at the case and the base upon which he was convicted, it had been my understanding that they were essentially morality laws that he had been convicted on. Why would someone being held on convictions related to morality laws be put in such a facility which on the surface looks like it would be put together to hold the most dangerous terrorists that this country would have in their possession?
And for that answer, I'm going to let the brother Ibrahim Al-Mahdi, who is Dr. York's son, answer that question.
Brother Ibrahim, welcome to the conversation today. Okay, and Brother Ibrahim, have you unmuted your microphone?
Oh, yes.
Welcome to the program today, Brother Ibrahim.
Welcome. The answer is simple. It goes back to the fact that my father, who was my biological father, has the ability to gather people by the masses, meaning black people alone. And black people are the backbone of this society and the nation and economy. We are the major consumers of food. We work in all the low businesses such as McDonald's and everything, the bus station, the taxi. So if we decide to stop working for this system and work for each other, for the black community, we can actually collapse this whole economy. And this is one of the things that they are afraid of. When a man like that, or like Martin Luther King, has the power to move us in unity, strength is in numbers. They have to get rid of a black person like that. And that's one of the major reasons why he is locked up in that situation that he's in right now.
Yeah,
it doesn't have nothing.
Yeah, I agree that when it comes to the threats that black people pose to this country, the leaders of this country know across the board that black people really do not pose any real, true, violent threat to America. The real threat that we pose to America is our acknowledgement of our nation within a nation status.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. There have been instances where individuals have done violent acts, and of course, when it comes to individuals doing violent acts within America, the black man will have to go a long, long way to come up to the level of what the white man himself has done as individual acts of violent crime. But when it comes to black people as a collective, no, they know that it's no threat, but the great threat is the threat of a Dr. Martin Luther King, of a Malcolm X, of a Marcus Garvey, of a Noble Drew Ali, of a Dr. Malachi Z. York, of what was the one who just died, Yahweh Ben Yahweh, of Geronimo G. Jagger Platt. We could go down the list of political prisoners and victims of assassination who the real threat was forming nationhood within this country's boundaries.
That's right. One of the things that they hate is for us to start loving each other. Because when we start loving each other and loving our own image, our fathers and our mothers, we no longer want to look like them, dress like them, want their language, want their food. We want our own food. We want to speak our own language. We don't want to learn about their history. We want to learn about our story in our schools. And once we start doing that, they start losing their businesses. And this is what it's all about. It's about money, it's about power, and it's about control. And once we start living up for and by each other, regardless of what regardless of what religious background you come from, if we acknowledge the fact that we are black and we are in this together and we start working for each other, only eat from our restaurant, only support ours and buy our stuff, they start losing everything because we are, again, like I said, the backbone of this society. People don't realize that, and we are very important to them.
Yeah, so very important.
And and to add to that, one of the other things that Dr. York was putting out into the public was that we on this planet is just humanity. And if we as humanity begin to put down those boundaries of religion and of race and of sex and start to really deal with one another on a level of intelligence and on a level of respect of your culture, of my culture, the machine of racism would end, meaning you wouldn't be able to profit off of other people's suffering. And that's a problem because that's a market within of itself.
Yes, so
and
very
another
true.
One thing that my father, Dr. Malachi Z. York, our master teacher, has done was give us a land, our own language, our own culture, a different perspective on doctrine, but regardless of what religion, because we have Christians that are on the Wabin, we have Muslims that are on the Wabin, we have even, Buddhist monks coming traveling to the land. They have to destroy that because we had our own autonomy, so to speak. And that's the beginning of being liberated. That's the first step of being free, is to have yours and being self-sufficient and independent. And that is one of the things that they don't want our children to start seeing, is that we can do things without the help of the man, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, so very true. So today, again, the program is a special appeal to support Dr. York, and specifically, you say the most critical need at this particular point is a medical transfer, that being locked up right now in the Colorado Florence Super Max prison, a prison usually reserved for the world's most dangerous individuals, who all, even the real most dangerous individuals all happen to be within America, but the world's most dangerous individuals being locked up at this Florence Supermax prison in Colorado. But Dr. York, his life is in danger there. And this special appeal, what are you asking the listening audience to do?
We are
do their own research. To do their own research. Don't just accept what the media has to say, because the media doesn't always tell the truth. They paint a picture for ratings. So, what I'm asking, and we all asking as the Wabin, is for them to do their research, so their own research, and they'll find out that he's innocent to begin with. He's innocent, so that's what we want.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I do agree.
And also for today, basically what we're asking for the radiothon is for people to please donate, because at this point, we know with COINTELPRO, one of the main things that they do to a black leader is drain the nation. And at this point, it's things is getting, to a point where it's like, okay, now we have to start to go outward to ask for help. We still have money coming in on the inside, but because of the COINTELPRO aspect, it has run people away. But there are still thousands of us around the world in different countries who still have the bookstores. But today, right now, we wanted to get the message out, and really this year is definitely our year to really promote his innocence, because that has not been done fully up to this date, because we've been in the legal system fighting for him. And that's basically what today is about. It's about getting out the information, the up-to-date information. We have people who have grown up with these people, these alleged victims on the line, who are willing to tell you about their character and how it all came about. And with that, just coming forth to the people, to your listeners honestly, and putting out that information, we're definitely asking for your support.
All right. Is there a website or a destination, a telephone number, a PayPal that's set up for people who would like to support?
Yes, at www.transferyork.com. There is a PayPal as well as information. They will be able to click on the hyperlink for those people who have never seen Tamaray, we have pictures up there on the hyperlink Tamaray to see what the land looked like, as well as the donation page there, as well as the federal 60 minutes expose on Supermax, Florence, Colorado.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, again, I'm just looking at several things in the background and recognizing,
Ebony?
Okay, and welcome to the conversation. We'll be right with you. Recognizing that there are still major contradictions with the trial of Dr. York. We'll be talking about some of those major contradictions. We still have to deal with the fact is that Dr. York pled out. Can we talk, before we start to talk about some of the major contradictions and now how many of the witnesses have recanted and talked about how they were coerced, etc., can we talk about the pleading out? Why did Dr. York plead out his case in his trial?
Okay, with that, I'm going to let the brother Ibrahim, and from there we would like to go to the sister Ebony, who was one of the alleged victims, and she can tell you her story of what happened.
Very good. Thank you. Brother Ibrahim?
Okay, that is simple. Most of the time when you're in that system, you are under duress. When you have your family, your attacked, and, when you have, when you're getting threatened while you're on the inside about losing, family losing, children being taken away, and things like that, you can be coerced into easily coerced, under coercion and threat, and under duress to take pleas, and to take the plea bargain. And that's one of the major reasons why he actually did it, for the benefit of his family and for the benefit of his people. If you are a leader, you think of your people first, So that's what my father did, and he taught me that. You think of your people, you think of the children, you think of the family first. So if you are being threatened and your family is being threatened, you would take the downfall, that's just a noble thing of doing it, but that's what the plea bargain is about. The plea bargain was under duress, threat, and coercion. Period.
Mm-hmm. Now, yes, okay. I do understand that there is a very serious basis for confirmation that inside of the U.S. Prison industrial complex that black leaders, black youth, black militants, black progressives have been tortured. We do have the case of, I think, the San Francisco 8, who were all members of the Black Panther Party, who were captured. I can't remember what state that they were captured in, but they were imprisoned in, I believe, Mississippi or Louisiana, one of those two places.
Oh, yeah,
I think it might have been New Orleans. And that they were tortured, and now the record has come very, very clear that they were systematically and in the most brutal, direct, unambiguous nature. They were just tortured into confession. And, of course, we recognize that the United States is the same country that wants to make claims that torture isn't torture. They want to make, they've made videotapes of themselves torturing their political prisoners. And then now the controversy with the CIA destroying those videotapes of U.S. officials engaging in torture. So it is by no means at all beyond the scope of us understanding how this coercion could have taken place.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I mean, when you have, he wasn't the only one that was arrested. When you have children, with guns to their heads, when you have elderly women with guns to their head, when you see your family's life in danger, and the way they came in, if you were there, and that's why I'm happy that we have certain people who were there online so they can explain their experiences personally. Then you can see the fear and the intimidation factor. Well,
let's bring in Sister Ebony to our conversation today. Sister Ebony Henry, are you with us? Sister Ebony, welcome to the conversation. And Sister Ebony, you may need to unmute, which is, I believe, is it *6? Okay. Who do we have on? Sister Couture, Sister Coffee, are you still with us?
Yeah.
All right, and I believe we had heard Sister Ebony's voice come into the conversation. Is she still with us? All right. If not Sister Ebony, perhaps Sister Keturah can come in and talk about her experience.
Yes, that was, yes.
All right. Somebody's going to have to let me know they're online.
Hello.
Hello. Who do we have with us?
It's Keturah.
Hello, Sister Keturah. You would like to share with the LIB radio listening audience today your own experience having grown up in the Nuwaubu Nation?
Yes. Basically, I was on the land for about 8 years, and I grew up with a lot of the people that, testified against his blasphemy, getting molested.
Okay, and when you talk about you grew up on the land, this is, of course, the Tamari kingdom or empire that was being built there in southern Georgia?
Tamare?
Tamare, yes.
Yes, that's the name of it.
Okay, continue.
Yes, that's right. All right, basically what I want to say is that I grew up with a lot of the girls that testified against Malachi York. And, they basically, it was basically a conspiracy. When I left the land, I got together with some people that left as well, and they were, talking on what they can possibly do to get, to get some money, basically. And it was a vacation that they went on that I didn't go on, but that's when it was all talked about what they were going to do or say, to basically set them up. And I was approached and was told to go along with the story. However, I did not because it wasn't true. So basically, one of the people, namely Habiba Washington, she went in on the conspiracy and then obviously tried to recant, and they threw it out. So there was a lot of people that was told they was going to get a book deal, they was going to get some money, and that's why a lot of people decided to go in on the story. But our life on the land was basically, it was great. It was like any other life. You have ups and downs. But growing up, we were so busy, it was just really impossible for any molestation or anything to be going on, especially with people like Amanda, Belora, people that, that I grew up with, that was in my group that I was with 24/7. It was impossible for that stuff to be going on. Mm-hmm. So that's basically what I wanted to say on that behalf,
And you knew, and you say you knew some of the people who testified. Did you ever, in the aftermath of all this, ever have encounters where you could just ask them why would you allow yourself to be used like this?
Yes, I definitely had encounters. A lot of people was influenced by their older relatives that left the community, I guess, a while back that was bitter for some, odd reason. So, it was hard to get them to talk about it because, I sensed like a certain type of guilt, but, when we would talk about it, it would get thrown out like, talk about it.
Okay. No, Sister Caffrey?
Yeah.
Okay. Just in keeping the conversation going, obviously you know much more about this case than I do, as well as some of the principals who are involved. Can we talk to, are there any others? I believe we were looking for Sister Ebony to participate in the conversation. Any others who have direct experience, with this particular case that can show more of the insight?
If Sister Ebony is on the line, she could come forward. Or I know
Sister F.
Okay, we're live and direct, and anybody who's not speaking, I think the *6 will allow you to mute your button so we don't hear a lot of extraneous conversation, etc. going on. Again, we're live and direct. The time right now is 8:04 a.m. on the West Coast. That makes it 11:04 a.m. for our East Coast listeners. For anybody out there who wants to join the conversation, we're going to allow you to call in during the show. You can give us a call at area code 323-902-2919. You can call toll-free in the United States at 800-842-1409. If you're in the UK, call us on our London line at 0208-002-9096, as well as you can email info@libradio.net. That's going to get you right through, and you'll be able to ask a question of a panel of participants today, all of whom associated with and committed to the Nuwaubian Nation. Okay, who do we have up next?
Hello?
Yes.
How you doing?
Great. You give us your name.
You hear me? Gerald Richards.
Okay, Brother Gerald. Can you talk to us about your your role, your experience in this particular case?
Okay. I first like to say I'm Ebony Richards' husband. She's supposed to be in.
Yes.
She'll be talking in a minute. But I just want to say I lived on the land for approximately 10 years. 444 Shadedale Road. I was up there doing the raid. Also testified during the trial of Reverend Dr. Malachi York. And I'd like to first state that this was an ongoing thing that started years before with the Putnam County Sheriff and the building inspector and building zoning laws and things of that nature, which gradually progressed on to the, false incarceration. I'll go back to the raid, first of all. The raid, the warrant was first given under an illegal name, Dwight York, which he is presently being incarcerated under that name, which is not his name. There are no documents were ever presented in court after the trial with the name Dwight York on it, which is the first mistake they made. His name is Malachi York. That was on all his documents. Mistake. What they also did during the raid on 444 Shadedale Road, which also occurred at his home in 155 Mansfield Court in Athens, Georgia, Dr. York did not own the land on Shadydale. He was not there during the raid, so there was no reason for over 300 and something law enforcement and law officials to raid the land with guns and things like that. One of the things which the media tried to portray was that Dr. York as well as the Nuwaubians were a threat. But throughout the trial to this day, there were never any gun charges brought up, never any assault charges, nothing, any charges dealing with violence or nothing like that ever came up. So that threw all that out the window. Mm-hmm. During the trial, they also had to keep doing superseding indictments because slowly as we were finding out more and more things that were happening during the trial and gathering more evidence. They had to create this big event or big thing to make something stick. For example, they indicted him under the RICO charge. The RICO charge was created for specifically for drug kingpins as well as so-called mafia dons to associate them with crimes of their organization. Dr. York was found guilty under the RICO, but there was never any illegal organization that he was, accused of. So that throws that out the window. He was accused of transporting minors across state lines for the purpose of having sexual intercourse, the Mann Act. During the trial, the head FBI investigator, a woman by the name of Jelaine Ward, she actually had to testify in court in Brunswick, Georgia, that there was no witnesses to corroborate or prove that he ever did that. So the point should be made that if the head investigator for FBI said on court that there was no evidence for this, how could he be convicted for a crime that they said they had no evidence for in trial? Tried to prove a molestation case and a case of transporting minors, which they never proved. They got him for, what's the name of it, money laundering, when they said that he deposited, I think 8 times money to hide, under $10,000 to hide it from the federal government. But in court, we presented over 20 cases or 20 deposits where he deposited over that amount. We proved in court how he never got audited by the IRS. He paid all his taxes on time, so that should threw that out to court. Out of all the alleged victims that they brought up there, more than half of them stated that they had never been molested nor touched by Dr. York in any manner whatsoever. Before the trial, they said in the newspaper and the media that they had video evidence against him. They had pictures against him. There were never any pictures shown in court. There was never any video shown in court. In fact, we had an expert witness who works at Grady Hospital, a highly respected doctor, who testified that Dr. York didn't even have the simple herpes complex that over 98% of the country has. America, or people in general have. Dr. York didn't have that, but all the alleged victims had it. There was no DNA evidence ever presented. All these different things that were brought out in trial, what the prosecution did and the alleged victims that testified on their behalf did was, in the case, they made it seem as if Dr. York, and this was brought up in trial, that he was molesting children for years, 15 to 20 times a day. And that was done so that he could never present an alibi for where he was at or what he was doing, because they made it so prevalent that he did it so much. And, you know, that's what they did. As well as one of their star witnesses testified under oath that she had also molested a young man who was on the land at the time. So she was doing it basically to cover herself. It was many instances like that. The other star witness testified in court that she was getting paid for this testimony. So it was things like that were going on, and they covered it up so that, you know, this wouldn't get out public. What a lot of people don't realize about when we lived on 440 Shade Road, that it was a close-knit community. Something like this could have never went on without other people's noticing. And if you look at the trial and who was actually making these accusations, it was a very small group of people, and there was no one outside their circle to corroborate their story. It was just a small group, and what they did was they were the story up. You know, well, I was with this person, I was with that person, I was with this one. There was no one outside their circle that ever came and gave evidence that, yes, I saw this happen. And this has, and over the trial and over the almost 5 years since the trial, no one has still come forward and say, you know what, that I did what this just happened. No one has ever made that statement. So all this links to there was no evidence whatsoever. Bogus witnesses that were messing up constantly in trial, which is one reason why they did not want to release the transcripts. And also, very importantly, you had one of the jurors at the time. We didn't know the jurors by name. We were just given numbers. One of the jurors, when they went in for the deliberation, they had a hung jury. Later on, that juror changed their mind. We never knew why. But how can you have a jury that makes a decision in less than a day for RICO charges, the Mann Act charges, money laundering charges, all this in less than a day's time? That you cannot find me another federal trial when that has ever happened, when they made a decision that quickly. You know what I mean? Most people don't even understand the RICO Act, let alone make a judgment against it. There was no evidence proving that. Mm-hmm. So these are some of the things we're trying to get out, you know, and how it was a constant berating of our organization through the media, through law enforcement. Many times the sheriff of Putnam County, Howard Richard Seals, made comments that he felt threatened by us. He felt people were scared. But throughout our whole time in Eatonton, Georgia, the land was always open. We had tours constantly. Every day we opened it up for people. Anybody could come on the land. We had many events where thousands of people came on the land. Never any violence. Never any no time did we ever have to call law enforcement. So we had a constant group of people in there. And that brings up another point, that in the trial and in the indictment, the superseding indictment, in order to try to take the land, which they eventually did, what they stated was that Dr. York created the organization for the purpose of soliciting children from the members and having sex with the children, and for stealing money. That was the purpose of the organization. And they said that we bought a whole bunch of land out in the country to hide his activities. If anybody knows or familiar with our land on 440 Shade Road, we had pyramids in the front of the land. We weren't trying to hide it all. We were inviting everybody from surrounding neighborhoods and throughout the country, throughout the world actually, onto our property, which doesn't sound like a person who's trying to hide anything. Dr. York was seen many times in Millersville, Eatonton, Macon, Atlanta. He walked freely around. This was not a person who was out hiding, seclusive, trying to do some illegal acts. This was a person who was out there very much loved throughout the community, gave money to the community, did many things through our shrine organization, our church, you name it. It doesn't sound like a person who's a child molester in the closet trying to hide, steal kids. That doesn't make sense. And what they did was attack us through the media first. They did this so-called reputed or respected member of the community, Howard Richard Seals, to get up there and lie throughout the media and television about us to get people to think that we're crazy. Therefore, when they brought him up on trial, it was very easy to make it seem like, yes, this man guilty without showing any evidence, which they did.
I've got an email that's come in, and I'd like to share, and anyone who would like to respond to the email. There are two questions. Hotep, Brother Keedy, and guests. This is from Brother Randolph Scott. He writes, I have two questions. Do you think COINTELPRO type activity has occurred since this case began? And if so, and members who are on FBI or CIA payrolls are still holding prominent decision-making positions in what's left of the organization? He said, I heard an attorney, Adrian Patrick, on this station a couple years back, and it seemed to me that he was not working on behalf of Dr. York, but of the other side. I have read that Dr. York also stated that attorney, Adrian Patrick, was working with the other side to keep him locked up. That's the first question. Has anyone been aware of or suspected any COINTELPRO type activity that's gone on since this case began? Perhaps, Brother Ibrahim, you may want to respond to that.
Hey, are you there?
Sister Kafri?
Well, basically, COINTELPRO, if anybody studies COINTELPRO, and their desire or their push to eliminate any black messiah, any leadership within the black community, that is not stopped, since the...
You looking for a cover for that one? Is that the new or the old one?
Okay. And we got somebody else talking in the background also. I do recall our interview with attorney Adrian Patrick, and it was quite an interesting interview. It became really quite hostile, and I was aware also that there was a big problem with the legal representation for Dr. York, ended up resulting in firing of one set of lawyers and the rehiring of another.
Yeah, that has actually happened a lot in our case. What a lot of people don't really know, and I'll get back to another point of the case involving lawyers. The question was asked many times, why didn't Dr. York, why didn't he testify on his own behalf in trial? His lawyer at the time received a letter from the federal government stating that if Dr. York got on stand and actually stated his innocence, each time he stated his innocence, he would be hit with a charge, which is going against what he had previously said in the rest that he made the what do you call it?
The grand jury.
Yes, when, not grand jury. When he initially, I'm trying to think of it. Someone can help me out. When Dr. York with a federal case, when he stated under duress and later brought back his plea of guilty, that's what it is, and he later changed it for the federal case, his lawyers would send a letter by the federal government stating, or the federal prosecution stating that if Dr. York got on stand and said he didn't do it, he was going to be hit with a charge of perjury for each time he said that, because he had previously pled guilty. Even though we had made a statement and put in the papers that it was under duress, and we gave the reason why, they still said that for each time it would be committed perjury. So what we were looking at, and his lawyers didn't fight it at the time, was that if he stated his innocence each time, then that's another count, another 15, a 5 to 20 year count they were going to try to hit him with. So after beating one trial, he would be hit with another trial with a 100 count indictment of perjury, and his lawyers didn't fight that. So it was many times during the trial when the lawyers who were representing him, who Dr. York had never picked, this was done by members of the organization, where the lawyers didn't fight on his behalf. Originally, what the law firm of Garland's law firm that we hired their services to fight on his behalf, but they took a lot of money to try to get a plea deal, knowing we paid all this money to go fight the trial. It was small things like that which we were encountering where people were actually scared of the federal prosecution. And if you look at their success rate of prosecuting people in the federal court, you'll see why. A lot of lawyers really don't want to fight that. They'll rather try to take a plea deal because the federal government and their COINTELPRO program many times will just go after you, the jugular and do anything they can to get a victory, a verdict on their behalf. And this we encountered, with our lawyers as well.
Let me just ask a question, because was Dr. York convicted under Georgia state's jurisdiction or under federal jurisdiction?
Federal jurisdiction.
Oh, okay.
That was when, and that was a point we were making with the transporting of minors for the purpose of having sex.
Yeah,
the Mann Act.
Right.
That's a federal crime. Actual molestation is not a federal crime. So what they did was basically put up a lot of molestation charges by alleged victims, but never proved whether it was done by going across state lines, which was very important, which was in the state case. That's when I said the FBI Special Agent, Jelaine Ward, who we subpoenaed at the trial, and she actually had to get on, on the stand and state that they had no evidence whatsoever for transportation for the purpose of having sex with minors. They had no evidence for it, but yet he was still convicted of it. And another important point when being convicted of that charge of crossing state lines, it was 2 accounts which he was found not guilty for. These were 2 accounts when they said that acts occurred in Disney World. This is so important because they were able to go after the land on 404 Shadedale Road because they said he was convicted of these crimes. If they had said he had did it in Disney World as well as 404 Shadedale Road, they would have also had to try to get the property on Disney World. If they didn't try to get the property on Disney World, then this would have been stated on how you're going to get the property on Tamaray or Eatonton, Georgia. So they cut that one off, and that was funny that was found not guilty, but the other ones were found guilty. Yet still no evidence for either one of them. So it were small things like that, which the lawyer at the time did not fight, which we were, kind of passionate about, like, how could they do that? And that's how they were able to pull certain things. And as the learning process with lawyers and learning the federal system as well, we were encountered by, things like that we learned afterwards.
We are live and direct and talking with wu-nuwaupu and family about the special appeal for support in the case of Dr. Malachi Z. York. To continue this email, the second question Brother Randolph sends in, are the transcripts of the case still sealed, and how long are they sealed and why? Perhaps Brother Ibrahim or Sister Kafri might be able to respond to that question.
Hey, how you doing, brother?
Yes, who's this I'm talking to?
This is Amir.
Yes, Brother Amir. Do you know, are the transcripts for the case still sealed and why?
Yes, they are still sealed because what happens is once we have an opportunity to go over what really took place in this case, you're going to see how he was completely railroaded because, for one, you have the different things like DNA evidence, you know what I'm saying? Because the good thing about it is there was a lot of wu-nuwaupians taking very accurate notes while watching on, they had like a closed caption television that they were able to actually watch and take notes of what was going on because these people claiming that this sex was taking place on these pillows. Like, I mean, okay, if so, and where is the DNA evidence? And these are different things that the public will begin to look at like, okay, well, there was surveillance on the land as well as his house in Athens, Georgia. So then you're telling me all this surveillance, they have no pictures of this child molestation, they have no photos. Then you're telling me, okay, you got 8 to 10 of these alleged victims that said he had sex with 156 times, like literally, I'm going to email this to you when we're done talking too. Literally, the amount of times that they said he had with them over the course of 10 years was 11,156 times. That's 121 times a month he would have had sex. He would have had to have sex with these supposed children to make what they're saying true. But see, the thing is that they immediately made sure we didn't have access to this information, because upon us having access to this information, we begin to scrutinize, like we should be doing, and saying, well, this doesn't add up. You understand? And I want to also touch on something that you spoke about earlier. You were like, the threat, what threat did Dr. Malachi York pose, and basically, and what threat do we as a people pose? Well, we have to admit that, well, it's a lot different than it was in the 60s. In the 60s, there was a physical war going on, a physical war. And when I say physical, you had even with Martin Luther King, who was about peace, and he was about peace, and he was saying, well, look, we're not here to fight you. We just want to coexist with you. But even him, they was being beat down, hosed down. So whether or not they wanted to actually permeate peace through what he was teaching, he was still being beat physically, which was a great, it was unfortunate what took place, but the tactic was beautiful, because people on TV were watching. It's like, yo, these people are savage. Why are they treating these people like this? They're marching peacefully, but they're still being beat, just because they want equality. You understand? Now, you had, of course, Malcolm X and those in the Black Panthers that were like, look, no, we're not going to let you put your hands on me. You understand? So it was a physical war back then. Fred Hampton shot 90 times. They shot 90 bullets into this guy's window. We know for a fact COINTELPRO was involved. Dude had no prior charges, never did drugs. So this was a physical war taking place. What happened is now, what Dr. Malachi York did, he understood that we cannot win a physical war with these people. You feel me? He said we have to build ourselves back up mentally. You understand? So what he did, he dedicated his life to those born from the year 70 on, these young minds, which you still see, because he already saw where the media was going, because the 70s, see what happened was the 60s, they saw it, okay, well, they want their images back. They want the afro, the dashiki, they're coming back into themselves again. So what did they have to do? They were like, okay, well, look, okay, if you want this job as an actor, I'll give you the job as an actor, but now instead of the guy with the afro and the dashiki being the person that's the hero, we're going to make you the bad guy, and we're going to start making the guy with the straight hair and, make him the good guy. So slowly but surely, the media began to drill into our heads the negative imagery of who we are. So we don't have the media like y'all did. Y'all had Marvin Gaye. Y'all had so many people, different people stepping up and telling you how strong and how great you are. We did not have that. They hit us with They hit us with the AIDS. Hit us with crack cocaine. They literally implanted these different things into our community to make sure that this generation, those generations born from the 70s on, would not give them the same problem that those before us did. So what Dr. York had to do is he had to go within. He had to bring these books to us in order to right. You understand the wrongs that was being shown to us in the media, in school. You already know we're being lied to every day in school, but now, the media is destroying us. But what happened? What happened was it became a problem because this information began to seep into the music. It began to seep into the way of life. With the people like Africa Bambaataa, Public Enemy, Zulu Nation, Nas, Erykah Badu, Music Soul Child. So the information was growing and it was still getting across to the people. And once that took place, that's when it became a problem. That's when, come on, we know they were surveying them. And that's another thing. They were watching. They were supposedly watching for 10 years. Surveying him. So you telling me all that time they allowed him to molest these children? The government allowed for these people to be in this dangerous, environment? So it's like none of it makes sense. And if you go into what he was teaching, go into the facts of the case where, he's innocent.com, you will be able to see, look, this doesn't add up. You understand? We have to free this man because he's the only one for this generation. I have to say, the only one who's took time out to help us. The only one, because no one else has. No one in the media, no one else has done what Dr. Malachi York has done for this generation. Your generation, my brother, you had many people that stood up for y'all. We only had Dr. Malachi York. And then through him some of the rappers started standing up. Some people that had the power of voice began to say a little bit of information in the music that begins to want us to say, okay, dang, I do kind of want to know about myself. I do want to be natural. I do have my own culture. You understand? And that was the problem, and that's why they have him with right now.
All right. We are live and direct, and there is also a website that's set up. Sister Capri, there's a website set up with the donation button. Right now, I am on that website. And can you share that information with our listening audience?
It's www.transferyork.com. If they go to that site, they will be able to download and look at the Colorado case that is for his medical transfer. They will be able to read all 40 pages of it to see exactly the points that we're making as far as his security level, his medical level. He's actually a level 3 care patient, which means they knew this when he was first arrested. His doctor for 7 years sent the U.S. Marshals a document saying stress triggers this. If he's not in the correct facility, he could die within minutes of asphyxiation from his hereditary angioedema. The case is in place because it's becoming acute. He's getting attacks every other day at this point. We have documents that show how he had an attack and laid in his cell until 11 o'clock. And when the medics came in, not even the medics, the security guards, they gave him Xanax. They gave him a medicine which has nothing to do with hereditary angioedema. And actually, the side effects of the medicine is swelling of the face, mouth, tongue, which is and hives, which is exactly what he was experiencing when he was calling for help. So this is why we're fighting for this, because right now, Dr. Malachi Z. York is being medically tortured. And this is not a game. This is not a laughing matter. Being in this place 23 hours a day in lockdown, if you go to the site, you will see the expose that 60 Minutes did on Florence, Colorado, Supermax. They tell about how the Unabomber 9/11, people who have been convicted for the attacks at the World Trade Center, this is where these people are. There's only 500 inmates at this particular facility, but none of them are convicted, so-called convicted child molesters, like the brother so eloquently put. Dr. York was not incarcerated for child molestation. He was only incarcerated for the intent, which the federal government only has to prove intent. And it's put in the federal, in their appellate, their brief, they said, our attorney brought up that issue, and they said, well, it's apparently the correct provisions for Mann Act wasn't construed in the court, but that the judge took note of the law. Basically what that's saying is, no, we didn't prove that he did any illegal acts in the state, but the judge is supposed to step up and say, well, where's your evidence here? All the government has to do is prove intent, and how do they prove intent is by precedence in the courts and by their law, which says all they have to do is say, well, it happened in another state, and they got a group of people who said it happened. They didn't have any evidence that showed that it happened, not even physical, because if you're having sex with 8-year-olds 1,000 or 100 times a month, they literally should have scars. We have seen documentaries where people have gone through that, and their whole insides are just jacked up. They're messed up. They can't have children. Their uterus, because they're small. None of this stuff is there. In fact, we have the documents that show one of the alleged victims has half her hymen. So all of these different things that could not have happened, as well as, like the brother said, the herpes simplex. The women who say that this happened to them, they had this herpes simplex 1. Said that Dr. York gave it to them. Dr. York has taken medical examinations, and he has nothing. So how can all of this happen? But again, www.transferyork.com. This is where you'll be able to see the case for Colorado and the and hopefully what we're saying to you will move people to be able to donate, because right now we have to definitely pay for his attorney to go in, because right now we're at the beginning stages of going to trial for his medical transfer.
Well, I just made a $50 donation in the name of LIB Radio, and just to show support for the entire wu-nuwaupu family, a family which represents Africans rising out of the dead level that we had unfortunately sunk to in this country. And I'm hoping that others out there listening will be motivated by my example and making a donation in the name of your organization or in your own individual name. And another email that's come through, this from Brother Carl, I'd like to share with you, if you don't mind. And Brother Carl writes, we as Africans are probably at the most pivotal point in our existence. Listening to this program is the prime example of the lengths that Europeans will go to finish its pogrom on blacks, as well as other people kissed by the sun. This pogrom is not of the overt kind, but also of the insidious kind, by way of distractions, of bling, consumerism, and other prepubescent whims such as assimilation, example given the current elections. I'm quite aware of what extent the Colorado prison system. I have 4 brothers who went through them, 2 in Florence alone, aware of what they will go through to accelerate this genocide against us. Black folk, in lieu of America's new pocketbook woes, the opportunity for self-reliance, as evidenced by today's program, may not only be diminishing, but altogether may present itself as moot. Hotep from Brother Carl.
Well said.
Okay, we are live and direct. We've got just a few minutes here before we have to take a break, but I believe we do have some people in the conference call who actually did testify during the trial. And from what I understand, there was at least maybe one person who testified and or was a family member of someone who testified and later recanted. Can we talk about some of the recantations that took place?
Hello?
Yes. Can we talk to anyone about the recantation of testimony that took place?
Hello?
I'm hearing someone, but someone's going to have to talk.
Yes, my name is, hello, can you hear me?
Please continue.
Yes, my name is Faki. I'm going to do my best to talk about the recantation in reference to that, and it's very important. When the recantations took place, it was supposed to be situated in a manner in the defense of Dr. Malachi York, but it wasn't. And to go further on that, there's been a lot of people that has came up, but out of fear of the government, is a very touchy situation. So I only could express that to that level, because you do have individuals that are sad for what they've done, or that do regret what they did because of what Dr. Malachi York did during their life. Because of the ploy was for monies. The ploy was for gratification of book deals and movie deals and different things, that the glamour that you get from the world that happens from BET and MTV and different things of that nature. And what happened, these people got these deals, and when they got these deals, they thought that's what was going to happen. But when they saw that the extent of what they did to Dr. Malachi York was 135 years, they a lot of them did recant because they didn't think it was going to be that bad. They thought it was going to be a slap on the wrist, or they would have got their monies. But just like the Montel Jordan show when they went up there, I don't know if you saw it, but if you recall, the female, when they asked her about have she had any medical attention since this took place, she went directly to the finances that was promised to her towards the end of the show. And that right there shows you that their whole intent, their whole plot in their mind was money-driven. And by it being money-driven, and this is what Dr. Malachi York always taught us, he didn't come giving us glamours and monies or anything like that. He came in to us with the cure of the world. And by me saying that is this: the women of our organization are put on a very high pedestal, and this is different. This is different than any organization on this planet. Why? Because Dr. Malachi York explained to us the power and who are the women in our organization, how they have a direct connection with this earth and the sun. Why? If you look at the sun, if the sun goes out, everything on this life will go dead. If the women of this planet, of Nubian women of this planet, stop having babies, everything of this life will go dead. But what's promoted in this community is sex, is to beat down your woman, is to play your woman, is to basically tear down your woman, and then this has been going on by the Europeans for years. And us as black men, we do the same thing. We tear down our black women. But Dr. Malachi York explained to us how we had to bring our women back up, how we have to put them in front, because how we've had this road that we've been playing, and we've been destroying this planet. And our women is going to be the ones that's going to be able to pull us through. And as us working together, we'll be able to get through many hurdles and different mountains. That will be incredible to the world. And we are the cure to this planet. And the thing about it is, once they knew that, by the brother was explaining from earlier, once they saw that, we was putting our women in first, because you have to remember what happened with Queen Latifah. Queen Latifah came out talking about women's first, I ain't a B-I-C-T-H, or she kept on, she was expressing the strength of a woman. What they did, they made her a cover girl. They made her do different clowning type shows. They took her out of the booth of making lyrics, because lyrics is very powerful. The same way you hear my voice and I'm talking to you, and to different intellectuals, they hear what I'm saying, and you put it in a rhythmic tone, it becomes very, very powerful. You know what I'm saying? They saw it. That's why they took Queen Latifah and they tore down a lot of the different images in the industry because of what was being done. But the thing about it is, specifically, it's a very touchy situation to talk about the recantments. But what I can say is that a lot of individuals do see what happened and what they did was wrong, and they are doing the right thing by coming up and specifically explaining the dynamics of what took place. And if you go onto the internet, one of the recantees does explain exactly how it took place and who was the key players and how it was done and why the federal government did what they did and so forth and so on. Because if you go back in time, you'll see that Dr. Malachi York key to the city in Brooklyn, and the key to be given the key to the city is very major for anyone. You follow what I'm saying? Why? Because he cleaned up Brooklyn. I grew up in Brooklyn, but for an individual to come out there and clean up a place like that is major. So what the Mayor Koch did, he gave him the key to the city. They know that. They know the heinous crimes that they put on him was to just character assassinate him. Because if you have written well over 400 books, how do you have time to commit acts that will put you in a manner of well over 1,000, that take your hours, the hours of your day, in order to be doing something else when you're putting out books? The books are evidence enough that he couldn't have had the time to perform them acts. The bookstores and the different things that we had opened up and went to these communities to help these individuals is proof enough that he didn't have the time to do these things. When you look at the 23 hours and 56 seconds that's given to us on a day, how does he have time to put out the material that he put out and then do these heinous crimes? You follow what I'm saying? And the thing about it is, they want to character assassinate him. By character assassinate him, whoever hear about Dr. Malachi York, they're going to look at the crime. Oh, I can't deal with that. Oh, I can't. Oh, he did that. Oh, my goodness. And better yet, they put him in a facility where criminals that's up in there, when they hear stuff like that, they know the history is when a guy comes in with sexual molestation charges, they're going to attack him. They're going to kill him. You follow what I'm saying? And this is why they transferred him from a minimum security to a maximum security, so something could happen to him in there. But the thing that they did not recognize is that the fact that the moment Dr. Malachi York start talking, truth is going to always be truth. You can look at somebody in their face and know when they're lying. You can look at somebody in their face and know if they got your best intention at hand. You can always see that. And truth is always going to be truth. And that's basically all I have to say, man. Peace in the land is truly wonderful.
All right. We're going to take a pause right now. When we come back, we're going to be continuing our special appeal to support the case of Dr. Malachi York, or support, I should say, the medical transfer case. There is a significant amount of money needed for the lawyers to put together a case to get this man transferred from the current situation where he could very well die at any time at Colorado's Super Max Prison in Florence. We're going to continue this conversation, so LIB Radio family, don't you go nowhere. Do stay tuned, live and direct on the LIB Radio right now. Today's date is Friday, the 29th of February. This is the last day of course, the shortest month of the year to tell the world's longest history. Our story is African people, Black African Our Story Month, we call it around here. We continue our conversation today. We are speaking with a number of members of the wu-nuwaupu Nation joining us on a conference call. Specially arranged program today is an appeal to support the case of Dr. Malachi York for a medical transfer. And we have a number of voices up. Let me bring in Sister Cuffrey one more time.
Yes. How is everyone?
I hope everyone else is doing good. We're doing good here. Also, somebody's listening to the program. I can hear it coming back through the speakers. If you are listening to the program over there, just make sure you mute your telephone so it doesn't come right back in. Who next do we want to talk to, or did you want to introduce the next part of our conversation?
We have Ebony Henry.
Okay, and before we go there, once again, I want you to give the website for your accepting the donations and where they can get much more information on this particular case and the Supermax prison where Dr. York is being held.
That is www.transferyork.com, and there they will be able to donate and get and to look at the case, the filing that's there for Dr. York's medical transfer.
Okay, transferyork.com is the website.
Hello?
Yes.
Yes, is this Mr. Malachi Z. York?
This is Makul, Chief Black Thunderbird Eagle, Chief of the Malachi Native American Moors of the Creek Nation. I am presently incarcerated in Jones County Jail. It is March the 2nd, 2004, and I'm making this tape to clear up some discrepancies in our tribe, the Malachi Native American Moors of the Creek Nation.
Okay. Now, do I have permission to tape this interview?
Yes, you have permission to tape my interview.
Okay.
And to make it publicly known what I'm saying.
Okay. There are some CDs circulating with other interviews and other conversations that you've done. What is your position on that?
Well, what happened initially, we did these interviews, and I was talking to people from the Atlanta Gossip, and I gave them permission at first, and then the lawyer told us, stop, don't put that out because it can be used against us. And so I told them, I spoke directly to Terry Bodie, and I spoke to her father, and I told them, do not put the tapes out. She promised me over the telephone she would not release these tapes. And about a couple of days later, I started receiving letters from different people from Tennessee and different states where they said they heard the tape and they liked the tape, and it's good that I made the tape. And I called her, and she told me again she hadn't put the tape out. Then I heard from another person a letter that the tape was on, some of the tape was on the internet. And they put it up there with hip-hop music behind it, so I called again. I told her, don't, she said, she promised me again. I said, not about a money thing, right? Because this person was going to put it out here. I figured it would help her paper and get started because she was trying to get the Atlanta Gossip started. We've been friends for a long time, so I figured I could trust her. And I said, well, you can put this out, and this will help you get your paper printed and everything. I told her to go to the office, get, the people, because the paper she was sending to me needed better layouts, get our offices more professional about it. And so I told them not to do it, but they did it anyway.
Okay.
I'm very disappointed about that.
Okay. There's also been some recent arrests and incarcerations of people that are claiming to be Yamasee Native American Moors of the Creek Nation. Are they members of your tribe?
Well, we think that's quite convenient that all this time we've been down here since 1993, we don't have all these things. middle of this case, in the middle of the sentencing, in the middle of the trial, people started doing a bunch of crazy things out of nowhere and calling themselves Massey Native American Moses Creek Nation. I'm not saying that these people have not been on the land. I'm not saying these people may not have joined one of the many branches of our organization. But by tribe, I know for a fact that the dog was mentioned, a dog, a pit bull was shot, and that marijuana was supposed to be involved. Nuwaupians, or the Nuwaupians of the Massey Native American Moses Creek Nation, we do not drink alcohol, we do not drink cigarettes, we do not smoke cigarettes, we do not smoke marijuana, we do not use any kind of drugs, nor do we have what we call gins or dogs around our house. We run along old culture called Asaru, when we never had dogs around our house. You follow? So them people are making those claims. So I know for one that the girl whose name was mentioned on television, who we know is from the Navajo tribe, and the two fellas, I don't know who they are, but I was told that they belong to the Washita tribe.
And we are back on live again. That was just a brief excerpt of a much larger discussion with Dr. Malachi Z. York. We're going to be playing some other excerpts. But I believe we do have Sister Ebony is available to us right now.
Yes, this is Ebony. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Ebony. Now, it is my understanding that you testified during the trial. Can you talk to us? Can you talk to us about your involvement in this case?
Okay, well, as a young child, I did grow up on the property of 404 Shady Dell Road, and I lived pretty much with everybody that was involved in this case, and it kind of hits me hard because, you know, growing up with different, you know, girls and friends, you develop a friendship with people, and to hear during the trial and to be actually involved in an indictment where you know nothing about and your name is in it with a bunch of fictitious lies, it really hurts. I'll take it back from when this all came about on May 8th, 2002, when they first raided the land. It's really hard for me to talk about because it was very intense. At the time, I had just had a child, and my baby was no more than 5 months old at the time. And being on the property, it was like watching a movie because I just remember a bunch of cars zooming up on the land, and I looked out the window, and not in a million years I would have ever thought they was coming to raid us. My first impression was that some illegal criminal ran on our land to get away from the cops, and the cops was chasing them. When I found out that it was real is when I walked into the next room and I saw a bunch of guns aimed at all of our windows. First, I don't know if anybody out there have any children or your first child, the amount of love that you have for your first child and being at gunpoint at that time, it was crazy. You know, you had a whole bunch of guns around circling the windows and kids screaming, and I just remember putting my child under the bed and trying to hide my baby, thinking that, well, if I'm going to get killed, at least let them not be able to find my baby. When we first was ordered out the house, I was one of the first people to come out. They had 5 guns on my baby alone, aimed at my baby's head. Now, you tell me, what kind of crime can a 5-month-old commit to have 5 guns aimed at their head? They fingerprinted my baby, footprinted him, took shots left and right as if my baby just was born to go right to jail. And that really hurt me. I mean, till this day, I'm still dealing with a bunch of trauma based on it because just that small, you know, it really messes with me.
Mm-hmm. Now,
go ahead.
Well, you say you had grown up inside of the nation. Were you friends with, or were you yourself accused in the trials of having been victim of Dr. York?
Yes, I was friends with all the quote-unquote alleged victims in this trial, and when it came about after May 8th that we were actually in an indictment, first of all, nobody ever came to me, asked me any questions about Mr. York or my involvement or anything. All I know is I am within this paperwork, this indictment stating that he was guilty of these charges. When I finally testified during court, one of my main counts was the Disney World trip where we all went to Disney World. I stated in court that I had never been molested by Malachi Z. York. I've never witnessed anybody being molested by Malachi Z. York. I've never heard or anything, and how it was impossible due to the fact that we all grew up and we all pretty much played together from the beginning of the day to the end of the day. We was around each other. And it was no way possible that they would have been somewhere that I wasn't. That's just not how it was. And first of all, if anybody is going to accuse if any act is going to be accused of anybody being molested, the first people should have been accused is their parents. Even though it didn't happen, I don't understand why in the trial it was never stated why the parents wasn't to blame for actually allowing something that devastating to happen to their child if it was true. If it was true, why everybody had close relationships with their parents? Why was it never brought to the parents' attention? Why didn't the parents never suspect any of this taking place? That's my whole argument within this. It's crazy that you can stand there and tell a jury or tell a court that nothing that has never happened to you. However, they tell you, oh, it did, you need therapy or whatever. But another victim could say it happened, and it's pretty much believable.
Was it ever
I done wrote affidavits. I done got on different radio stations trying to argue this case because it hurts me the fact that my name is involved in this case and Mr. York is suffering in prison due to something my name is involved in, and I have no way of clearing it up. It's like, what limit do you go to express the fact that he's innocent, to express the fact that you never said that this has never happened, yet he's still accused. You're still grouped with amongst the other people that is accusing him of doing this. How do you fight that? You know, it's like somebody telling you that your name is not your name. You're showing them birth certificates, records, and they're still like, no, you're not who you say you are. I mean, how far do you have to go to be believed? Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do understand.
It's like it's really frustrating.
Let me just ask you a couple of questions, if you wouldn't mind. Were you ever made aware of who actually made the accusations that you yourself were a rape victim or molestation victim?
Well, I know my name was grouped with a bunch of different victims that are accusing him. So I would assume that it came from them.
But there was never. You did testify in the witness stand during the trial?
Yes.
Yeah. And was it ever proposed to you, laid out, how your name was put on this victims list?
No.
Okay. Yeah, you would think that, the attorneys would really, here we have someone who's said to have been violated, who herself would know and would be able to testify. But then it seems like the attorneys should have really pressed the issue of who is making this acclamation. Let's put them on the witness stand and have them say directly that this Sister Ebony was molested at such and such a time. So who was it, I should say, that introduced this whole aspect of a Disneyland rape case? Or Disney World?
I believe it was one of the alleged victims that gave her testimony. If I'm not mistaken, it was the female Amanda. You have 5 people that was on the Disney World case, on the Disney World count, and 4 of them testified that nothing ever happened against that one particular person.
Mm-hmm.
However, that charge was dropped. However, my name, as well as a bunch of other victims' names, was involved in a whole bunch of other stuff, and we fought stating that none of this was ever accurate. And you would think that testifying in trial, that your voice would have some type of validity or in it to make, you know, to show people that you're not brainwashed, that you are saying the truth. But it's sad that no matter testifying or writing affidavits or speaking your mind, that's not strong enough. It's like, what level do you have to make it stick to people? Do you understand?
Okay.
It just hurts me because it's like he's suffering every day, and I'm really at a standstill of what to do. I mean, I keep telling people, you know, you can keep going on shows and expressing to the world his innocence, but it's like, what is the next level to take it to that people will really see how sincere that you are, you know, how it's affecting your life, you know? People are going around every day with their life, but I'm thinking this man is suffering because of something my name is involved in that I can't do nothing about. Do you understand?
Yes, I do understand. Well,
it's very frustrating.
Yeah, I understand. We have a couple of emails. Let me just read these while you just kind of gather your center again. First email comes to us from Tech398, writes, "Greetings, Keedy and guests. Keedy, given the genius of Malachi York, what did he do to help prevent this type of thing taking place? He had the Islamic community in Bushwick, then left, went upstate New York to become a Hebrew, then ended up in Georgia as Malachi York, the Egyptian Mako, Chief Black Thunder Bird Eagle. I read the scrolls and remembering him claiming he is the chosen one, God, to be an extraterrestrial being from the 19th galaxy called Ilyun. I think that's how it's pronounced. Ilyun. I support the brother and for what he has been trying to achieve. But given the things he stated over the years and his insight, I'm just shocked that he found himself in this situation." Anybody there would like to respond to that email?
Yes, I would like to respond to that. This is Sister Coffrey.
Yes, Sister Coffrey.
First, I want to say I appreciate the person's support of Dr. York, and it's a common misconception when you are dealing in culture. The reason why he taught on many different things, I mean, if you find out that if you are born into a particular religion, like a lot of us were, and you begin to teach on that religion, and as you are a true student of that religion, you find out, hey, this religion, through documented proof, actually connects to another culture.
Okay, and we need somebody, I'm sorry, Sister Coffrey, we'll need somebody to mute their phone in the background. I'm just getting a lot of background noise. Please continue.
To be able to the point of why he went to the different avenues of thinking and philosophy is because simply they exist. It's not a conventional way of going about it. Usually when people go into a particular culture or school of thought or religion, they stay there. But why would you stay there if you can begin to see it actually connects to older information? And if you're capable of reading Hebrew like Dr. York is, and if you're capable of reading Greek like Dr. York is, and you can read the different variations in the translation from Greek and Hebrew into English, I think you, the person who sent in the email, as a person who loves the truth and who loves your people, will begin to convey to them how important their position is in culture and religion and how old they actually are. To add on to that, I myself had my DNA done, and what I got back was that I actually am Egyptian. It shows the map of the true migration, and it's exactly what Dr. York has to set the record straight. It actually shows how we started out in Uganda, which is where the oldest known skeletons are, and it goes up, and we traveled up, or should I say down, the Nile.
Okay, and just one second, Sister Coffrey. For anyone other than Sister Coffrey, please press *6 right now. We're going to have somebody mute their telephone line because the conversation is just getting too crazy. Okay, I'm sorry. Yes, continue.
and we actually stand out. So in having that information and in knowing that is a reality, these are the different things of why we went from one school of thought to the next school of thought. To an onlooker, it looks as if we're confused.
Okay, I'm hearing another male talking in the background. Sister Coffrey, what can we do to get all the background noise cut out of the program so we can continue?
Has everyone muted their phone?
All right, why don't we just have everyone who's on the line speak one at a time, and whoever's voice can be heard, Sister Coffrey, you'll know their voice and tell them to mute their phone. Okay, continue.
Okay,
it's gotten quiet now, yes.
Yeah. Like I said, to an onlooker, it would look as if we're going to different religions and different schools of thought, but as we're in it, it's just like elementary, college. You start off at one level, and once you learn a certain amount of information, then you go to the next grade and you take on that amount of information, and then once you finish with that, you go to the next one. And as we went there, we culture to be able to realize where it's correct, where it's not correct, how can this benefit our growth? And dealing with the whole spaceship, everyone seems to really like to deal on that. But when we start to really go into where that comes from, then that's when people, they don't understand. When you're dealing with Egyptian, Sumerian history on the walls of the different buildings and temples that are in Iraq now, which is old Uruk in the Bible, there are, just like there's writings on the wall in Egypt, they have temples where they literally describe the solar system. And you have people like Zachariah Sitchin right now to this day who say, hey, how did these people, you have people like the Dogon who have the star charts. How did they know these different things? On the walls, which is the school that we were going through, on the walls it talks about how these people called the Anunnaki, who the Dogon called the Egyptians called the Nitiru. So they're referring back to their older culture that say that they created human beings out of a feat of genetic engineering. This is on the walls. And then you have to ask yourself, as people started to go over into these countries and begin to get all of the wealth and opening up of the museums and taking all of the artifacts, how did we jump from 1800 plowing to 1930s industrial revolution? How are we jumping so quickly? How are we in technology and scientific advances and in cloning? You have to ask yourself, how are these things happening so fast? You cannot create something from nothing. These techniques are written on the walls, and you have people who are being silenced, such as Dr. York and Zachariah Sitchin. These things are not new. It also talks about this planet Nibiru. If you type in Nibiru into your search engine, you will begin to see all of these. This is not new information. This is just new for people who aren't in the circle or aren't looking in that direction. That talks about this planet shift and how they travel. This has not started with Dr. York. This has started in Sumeria, and this is just the stuff that he was coming back and telling us. And do we have the brother Karam on the line?
Yes.
We have a brother here who will go into also talking about the history of the language and where the word wu-nuwaupu came from, because people really think that this is starting with Dr. York. And when it comes to us as a people, the name on the walls for us, my people, is Nuwaubian. Nuwaubian is not an organization. It's not just characterized to a group of people or, like a set organization, like a grassroots. That's not what it is. And then you're speaking to people who are in it, who are studying it. This is actually the word. This is the ancient word that is there, as well as the language Nuwaupu. They'll tell you the stories of people, if you go to National Geographic, of how on the walls you see people, how their life went during the day in Egypt. They have well, how are they reading this if it's just a picture language? Mm-hmm. There's actual language, and we do have, Brother Keedy, if you have we sent you the song so that after the brother gets finished explaining it, we have a song that the brother did so people can hear the language, and that's something that we think is very important. So, Brother Karam, if you...
Brother Karam, okay, and what is the name of that particular file that you want me to queue up?
All right.
I sent it to you, but I'm going to send it to you again, so it'll be right on top.
But I have this long list. If you just tell me just the name of the file.
Ajugmu.
Ajugmu. Okay, I'm not seeing that one, so you probably want to send that one again separately.
Okay, and the Brother Karam, if you want to come up and just speak on the language and your experience, he's also someone who grew up in the community.
All right. And before we bring on Brother Karam, I just want to again give out the website for people who want to know more information, or people who may want to support the case for the medical transfer, Dr. York.
It's www.transferyork.com, and they will be able to, again, look at the case, look at what we are fighting for, to get Dr. York transferred, because right now in Florence, Colorado, Supermax, he is being medically tortured right now.
Okay, transferyork.com. Transfer York.
Yes,
okay,
www.transferyork.com.
Okay, we have another voice up. Give us your name and talk to us about your involvement in this.
All right, how you doing there? My name is Karam.
Yes, Brother Karam.
I've been involved in this organization, this culture, this way of life for over 19 years. My particular area is dealing with the language that we speak called wu-nuwaupu, as well as education in reference to dealing with the children and things of that nature for the culture. Before I begin, I just want to give a little bit of a foundation so that I can begin explaining the area that I'm going to come from. First, we want to talk about language, tongue, and dialect. When we talk about those three words, a lot of times it's easy to confuse the three or to think that they all mean the same thing, whereas language is defined as human speech or a system of sounds that, and combination of those sounds that which meaning is attributed. A tongue is actually a language or a dialect, and a dialect is just a form of variety of a spoken language. So there's differences when we talk about language, tongue, and dialect. In America, today we speak actually a dialect of English. So when you hear a person that comes from England who speaks, quote-unquote, the Queen's English, and they come over here, and we looking at them like they talk funny. In actuality, they're speaking proper English. What we speak is a dialect that is called, that's actually American. So when we get into the languages, the one thing that's important to realize is that people of Nubian ancestry, people of African descendancy, who are here in America, whether they were transported, kidnapped, or whether they migrated here themselves, living in what is called Western society, have actually been without true culture for like 400 years. I mean, we have cultural concept that has popped up in the last century for us, but true culture, and true culture is the traditions, it's the language, it's your daily habits and practices that link you to a particular, I guess, demographic of people. So we can call ourselves African American, but what do we do as African part that links us back to African, other than carry the genetic traits, the brown skin, and in other cases, genetic dominancy. But when we talk about the language aspect, the language is very important because the language is the first part of your culture that identifies you. Whenever we're out and about and we see people that are from other cultures that are here in America, the first thing that other than maybe dress, how they might be dressed, that catches us is when they speak another tongue, they speak another language. African Americans have been without language or true language or a language that they can call theirs for so long that we even turn our noses up when it comes to our own speaking language. I've had many occasions where I would have my children in public and my children speak wu-nuwaupu as their first language, and people would ask me, my own people, African Americans, why don't they speak English? how are they going to survive in a society in the world? And I'm like, well, first of all, my babies was young, so they ain't finished learning. So, you know, at one point they are going to learn English, but I need for them to know that their first language, their foundation, is their language. The word wu-nuwaupu, just like the word wu-nuwaupu or wu-nuwaupu, takes its origin all the way back to the ancient languages and ancient cultures in Africa and ancient Egypt. The word wu-nuwaupu actually is a derivative of a word of the three letters, the nun, the waw, and the ba, which are three Arabic or Syriac letters that have been grafted into words like newborn or bunni or neba. And newborn and bunni are the words that liken to the skin complexion, because nubu or bunni is the word for brown in the Syriac language. Neba means messenger, and neba was the word, when you begin to go back into the scriptures and research the scriptures in their original languages, and you get back to the Syriac and the Aramic languages, you'll find that neba was the word that they used to describe the prophets. So when you take on the term nuwabu or nuwapien, what you are doing is taking on two characteristics. One, skin color, brown, and we're in all shades of brown, from the lightest brown to the darkest purple. And the descendancy from the royalty of the planet, from the prophets, from the al-anbiya, or the mustanabiya, or the nabiya, or the neba, the prophets, who came and they brought messages from the divine spark, from the divine source, whether we call him El-Elo, whether we call him Allah, whether we call him God, Jesus, whithersoever they came forth, the prophets were the ones who bore the messages to give to the people. So as a Nuwaubian, we recognize ourselves as brown descendants of the original messengers on the planet. The concept of the language Nuwaubic, when you go back and you start studying scriptural languages, you'll find that Ashuric is the mother of all the scriptural language. Ashuric, and the name, you'll find that they were all named after people, after different people. You know, our Arabic comes from Arab, who was Joktan's first son. You find that in the Bible. And the word Arab just means wandering in the desert. The word Araba in Arabic is car. So, you know, it's words that, you know, they carry basic meanings, and they link you to either people, demographic, or culture. Some of the Semitic dialects like Ugaritic and Chaldean and Syriac and Akkadian and Phoenician, all these things were the result of geographical changes, were the result of the changes in the tongue. A perfect example in the Bible, when we read the story in Genesis, I believe 11:9, where it talks about how all the languages at one time on earth. The beautiful thing about that is that when them languages were unified, it was a dialect of the language that we speak called Nuwaubic. Now, one of the closest references that if somebody is researching, they can go and they can look up and study the word Mirotic. Mirotic, M-E-I-R-O-T-I-C, is a language that is a dialect, a direct dialect of Nuwaubic, and can be found in the pyramids and some of the walls that you'll find in Sudan. Now, that's an actual language that we can actually go and see today that they're actually trying to erase now. That is give you an example of the fact that Nuwaubic is not just something that was made up. It's an ancient language. It's actually 25,000 years old, and it traces its root not only back to the first languages or the first beings on Earth, but even back to the stars. And like when the sister Catherine was talking about the different beings who, when you read the pictures on the wall and they linking themselves back to star beings, you have the Elohim or the Anunnaki or the Nezderu, as we call them, Nezderat, even the Nomos, Theos, all those beings that come from star constellations that links us. We have a relationship or a genetic attachment to them, and there were things that we were given. Language was one of them, and the language that we were given gives us a link back to our culture. So as a Nuwaubian, a true Nuwaubian knows that if you're going to practice a culture, if you're going to be of a culture, if you're going to raise your children in a culture, the first thing is language. And Dr. Malachi York has always taught us, he said, you teach them the language first, and the culture will come. Because the language basically has you acting in the parts of your culture, because you're speaking your tongue.
Right.
Not to say that nobody's going to speak English, but I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, we have a caller that's joined us. Can you take this phone call here real quick?
Sure.
All right, caller, welcome to the program. Your name and where you're calling from.
Yes, this is Brother Armistice from Sumerian Empire.
Greetings to you, Brother Armistice. You're on with a number of members of our Nuwaubian family. What's on your mind today?
Well, I have two things I wanted to say. I got the best wishes for our main brother there, Dr. York, and hoping his best in coming up out of the situation that he's in, and my love for the Nuwaubian family. But I have a couple questions to do some validity checks here. Has any one of the people that's today, have they ever been to Kemet to check out the language there written?
Is anyone who's on the panel been to the Nile Valley, to Kemet?
No, not yet. I'm planning on going, so I can't speak for anybody else, but yeah, that's in my plans.
Okay.
I plan to visit. Matter of fact, before the year is out, I'm planning to go and visit and see it for myself before they make it too hard to travel and leave the country.
Okay. If anyone,
as far as going over there, now I also plan to go in August. But for the brother who is calling in, not everybody will be able to make that trip. And those of us who do make that trip, if you do not have a background in different languages, you wouldn't be able to even decipher what you see on the wall. So our best hope as people here in America is to rely on those of you who do go over to come back, give us the information, and then we do the research. Like, I'll give you an example, the Enuma Elish. My personal research on what Dr. York has shown and put forth in his books, because remember, when I came, I just came picking up a book. I was just reading for knowledge of self. And this is how a lot of us came across his books. When he was talking about the Enuma Elish and the Gilgamesh epics and the Atrahasis and the stories of creation that are really where these people are getting. Now, we have them here in books, but all of this stuff was written on the walls and they translated. And we always refer back to Zachariah Sitchin because he seems to be the only one who seems to be promoted among their circle of people. I personally have his book, War of the Gods, and in the book it has excerpts from the Enuma Elish and from the Atrahasis. Dr. York translated those and put them in a book that he calls the Holy Tablets, and they are holy to us because that is our history in that particular scroll from ancient tablets and off the wall. And I've seen verbatim the translation. Verbatim. Now, some may say he got it from Zachariah Sitchin. That may be. If you feel that way, or hey, that's up to you. But I do know Zachariah Sitchin, the excerpts that he does talk about, is in the Holy Tablets, but in depth. It's the whole story of how everything came about. And when you talk about if you go to the Bible, you talk about the Immaculate Conception. And then you go to Isis and you talk about her Immaculate Conception and how Tahuti had to give her a phallus to be able to have her own child. How is that possible when they couldn't find the phallus? And when you go into Samaria and you read the stories of creation, it tells you how all of this stuff came about. It explains to you, as we know, as Egyptologists, if people study our history, that Tahuti is the inventor of sciences. Okay, these were real deal show enough scientists who had the science of in vitro fertilization. It's up there. It's there. And that's what that whole story is about. All of the stories that we see as far as Isis and Osiris, they happen, and some of them are parables because they're not going to come out and tell people about these sciences, because remember, our people took those sciences to be sacred, spiritual, and holy. So that's why you have so much symbolism. But they are there. They are on the wall.
That's true.
Brother Armistice, you had a follow-up comment or question?
Yes, because I got multiple of his books, and from Leviathan to, all kind of stuff there. The true history of Noah, all that, way back when, back in the 70s and things. And then I even had on site teachings from many of his the believers, including Zoja, one of his sons that resided with me for 6 months. And we discoursed plenty of things and had some certain issues about some of the validity of some things. And that's what I want to come out and be bring those things out. Because some of the things that's on the books that, as far as the language of Nubic language, whenever I went to Kemet, and I've gone, and I have multiple of my associates that have gone, including Brother Kitty himself, but I've never seen any of the Nubic Medu Neter up there that's in the Nubic books that Dr. York has written on. So that's why I asked that question. If you've gone yourself to have validation of what's written up on our ancestors' walls.
I will tell you this. There are, from what he has told us, is that from his family in the Sudan, which is the line of the Mahdi, from his family, they hold things, which is why there's so much, people don't understand the connection. There's so much catastrophe right now going on in the Sudan between the North and the South and the Dongala tribes and the Fuzzy Wuzzy tribes of all of the ancient history that they hold. And I'm here as to tell people our history is still here. Our history is still here. Those just like how you have the Essenes who went underground, those people are real. The knowledge is still here, and they pass that information on to people who are ready and willing to carry it. This is not an easy burden. You got people calling us crazy simply because we're just saying, hey, look back to your history. You know, so
can I add something, Mrs.?
Yes. Who's this?
Some things for us as students we verify. And walking with a person, you know, for a certain amount of time, you can develop that trust. And I'll give you an example. In the Holy Tablets, you said you have some books. Are you familiar with the Holy Tablets?
Yes.
Okay. In the Holy Tablets, it talks about the seven thunders. I received the Holy Tablets in 1995, and at that time, I was new. In the Holy Tablets, it talks about bees dying. Now we're experiencing bees dying. It talks about deformities. It talks about the fish coming out of the water because water is death to them. All of that stuff is right there. And so when you start to walk with a person for a certain amount of time and you start to see certain things that they said, a lot of people can even testify to the 80s when Dr. York was saying credit cards is going to be the thing. They're going to get rid of money. They're going to get rid of money. Money is not even going to matter in a minute. And people was like, how are they going to get rid of money? Well, then my testimony is when I'm in New York and I see change cards developing. They literally have cards in New York, and then the passes, the subway passes came out, took away the tokens and the subway passes. So me personally, I don't believe what Dr. York has said. I check out everything that he says because I am a true student of just information, period. So I look for these different things that he's talked about, and I've seen so many things, and I'm like, okay, at a certain point I can trust you. And then get into, and I want to add this, and I'm going to let the brother address it. When you start talking about wu-nuwaupu, I took a trip to Washington, D.C., and I met a brother whose last name was wu-nuwaupu. It was literally wu-nuwaupu or wu-nuwaupu in reverse, and he's from Nigeria. And then and then you can go into the Bible, and I do have the passages where it talks about Taharka and the Napata and how we migrated from certain areas from Egypt all the way out and became known as the Olmec. That stuff from Ivan Van Sertima, you can check those things out. There's certain things you can check out, and as you walk with a person, you learn to trust them, just like your grandmother who can tell you about things that happened. You weren't there. Right. But as you start to search for the root of the language and start to look into the Arabic and see how those things are there, and then you pull up Syriac and you see how all the root words are there, you're like, okay, now this language is real.
Someone else had wanted to respond?
Yeah, to add in what the guy was saying about the Nuwaupu language, and I know the brother Zoza he's talking about well. I know him real well. I hope he's doing good. When dealing with the Nuwaupu language, first of all, what Dr. York always told us was that is just one dialect. His family dialect, which he traces his family line back to a gnome in ancient Tamaray. So you're not going to go to Egypt or Sudan today and find everybody speaking that language or prevalent everywhere. That's one ancient tongue. There were many of them. You follow? So you're not going to see, and then plus add on to that, there's a difference between the wu-nuwaupu language, the hieroglyphic script you see in ancient Egypt, the Demotic, and the hieratic. Those are just some of the more common ones that are known today, but there were many ancient dialects, of which wu-nuwaupu is one of them, that we link to. You follow? So go to Egypt and say the hieroglyphics, oh, that's different than wu-nuwaupu. Your script is different. Yes, it's different, because we're going back to ancient. You follow? And that's one of the confusions of it. And when our wu-nuwaupu language was constantly changing, we were adding new words, deleting some words, deleting some letters. Because as you go further back, and you can do this with the Hebrew script or the Hebrew dialect, to take it back without vowels, the Arabic dialect, if you get back to changing, when you're going further back, you're deleting part of the stuff that other language took from it. You follow? So I can't, when you say that if you go to Egypt today and you won't find it in certain places and, you know, it's not there, you're correct in certain instances, because wu-nuwaupu was not a language that was spoken by all of Egypt. You follow? And that's one of the things we were constantly saying, but people got it misconstrued that the wu-nuwaupu is the language of total Egypt, and that's, you follow, that was just his family line dialect.
Mm-hmm. Brother Mr. you had a follow-up comment or question?
Yeah, well, just a follow-up point, and then one last comment, and that is, the follow-up point is that as far as the other entities that are in the universe that have come and participated in our creation and world dominance and things, my question is if we have demonic or evil reptilians that are assisting people that control the planet now, the George Bushes and those other puppet masters that control the puppeteers, you know, do we have anyone, do we have some, where are the folks that are coming in to help us as far as black folks, you know, around the planet?
You got a lot of them. Many of our black leaders have come to help. Reverend Dr. Malachi Z. York, one of them. Honorable Elijah Muhammad, which he always talked about, helped raise us up. Martin Luther King was another one of them. The thing is that we've been taught here in America to deny our own black leaders who come to help us. And all of them have culminated or ended without, come to the point where Reverend Dr. Malachi Z. York was the one to unite all that. And when we were going through the different schools, if you look at it, many of the schools, like when we went through more science, he gave his reference to the Noble Drew Ali. And Christism, he gave reference to to Martin Luther King. When we were going through Islam, we talked about Honorable Elijah Muhammad, even going back further, Deuce Ali, the Mahdi, all these different leaders. So we've had many people sent to help us out. But the thing is that
are they extraterrestrials? That's what I'm asking. Are they people from another planet or Planet X or whatever? Are they from another area that, like a reptilian? They say there's reptilians or mole people and Shambhala, the center of the earth, that come out and still help, Europeans and white folks control the world. Are there extraterrestrials that come in that we can come in and see and talk to, communicate with?
Okay, and can we take can you take that response off the air, Brother Amasis, so we can continue?
I got one last point to make, brother.
All right.
Hold on.
All right, Petey here, 1 second. Pardon. We got to have a little order here. Sister Kafri, I'll let you direct a response to that. And we're going to try and make these responses and a final question as quickly as we can. Sister Kafri, how do you want to direct a response to that?
First, with the different things that you're talking about that Dr. York has written about, I would suggest that everyone who is listening do your own research on these different things, because, like I said, Nuwaubians are not an organization. This is who we have learned, and to look at the ancient text to see, okay, this is our name. We know we're not African. We know that that's an Arabic word, Ifriqiya, to divide and conquer, to divide and separate. We know we're not, and even to a Roman Empire that had a portion of Africa, what is now called Africa. They named it Africa. We know we're not that. We know we're not black. We know we're not. We know we're not a Negro. That started in the 1600s when they started bringing people over here, and they wanted to strip the Moors of their royalty and to get more slaves. We know that. So who are we? So what I would say is this: get Zacharias Sitchin book, He has all of that stuff in there, so you, as an individual, to your listeners, will know your history. It's not for us to tell you who's going to come save or who's going to do anything. We don't claim that. All we're saying is, hey, take a look at you past slavery. Take a look at yourself past slavery and get to know what's written and who you really are and what you really mean to this planet. And in that, and in studying the Dogon, you will find how they talk about beings from other star constellations. Now, are we as a so-called group have a monopoly on it? No. And that's what the media has put out. And that's what we're here to say. It's like it's not like that. You know, like they assume that we know people who are in London. We know. Does a Christian know every Christian across the world? No, but they want to put us as a cult and in one spot, and it's not like that. So I would say we cannot tell you who's who and who's going to save. As far as reptilians, if you do your own research, if you found that reptilians exist, if you found that the Anunnaki exist, and you come to that conclusion for yourself, as all of us have on many different levels of the information, because it is simply that information.
Somebody else had a brief response to that?
Yes.
And who is
this?
You know,
it's funny. This is Ibrahim. This is Dr. Malachi York, biological son. The funny thing is a lot of people, they want to make reference to, and it seems like they have a problem with when you mention extraterrestrial. And the word extra meaning in addition to, and terrestrial means your planet Earth. But then when you ask, then have they
extra,
seen
the form in this form, the word extra as a prefix meaning outside of.
Outside of, or in
intra would be the opposite of that, meaning from inside of, and extra would mean from outside of. Please continue.
So when something comes from outside of the planet and land on the planet, what is that? That is, they call it an extraterrestrial object. Okay, like comets or anything like that, or even the generations of the heavens, which talks about genealogy of the heavens in the Bible, which is your angels. You talk about angels, or if Jesus said, "I am from above," that's talking about from outside of this. These are extraterrestrials. These are real beings. So when you start questioning them, okay, have you seen an angel before? Have you seen, is Santa Claus, which is all based on religion, is he real? When you start attacking, who is the serpent? Do serpents speak? So who is the serpent in the garden? Have you ever seen a lizard talk?
Okay, now we're getting Keely here. We're getting way away from the central part of our conversation. I'm just going to do the best I can to keep a focus on what I think is the strongest areas of why we are here today. So I'm going to allow you to continue to respond, but as a host of the program, I'm just caution in getting so far away from the reason we're here today.
Right. Well, what we're saying as a family is black people pick up a book and do your search before you start questioning the teacher. You do your research so when you ask a question, you can ask it properly, and with with something behind. Do your own research and really search, and then you'll find the truth in it. And then you have a way of asking a question where it doesn't sound so confusing. There's a lot of books that my father put out, over 360 books that talks about everything. We don't have to refer to Zechariah. If you choose to, you can refer to Zechariah Stitchins. You can refer to, and he even refers to a lot of different books, not just Zechariah Stitchins, and a lot of different authors. So that's what we want. Do your research, and then, then come and ask the question properly.
Brother Thomas, is your final comment or question?
My final comment is that I really appreciate the work that Dr. Malachi York has done, especially there in Georgia with the city, holy city, and the great things that was built there. I really love that, and I think I wish it could be duplicated in multiple places around the planet, and to be a serious learning tool and everything. My question at this point is that since it has since that city, holy city, has been connected with Dr. Malachi York and his incarnation jail thing, then with any other duplication with that, feel that even if there was the wu-nuwaupu or not, make the population feel that it is, evil, cultish, they're going to do some type of crazy stuff up in there, so that it would limit the progression of us doing that again. And I wanted to get a comment from there.
Okay, thanks for calling in, brother. Yeah, brother, if I could just kind of tighten that up again, tighten that question up just a little bit. What was built there in Georgia, I know I have a wonderful, great appreciation for what was being built there. Certain parts of the doctrine people can feel or not feel. That's personal. And like you say, encourage people to do their own research and then organize their own thoughts about the grand experience of the universe. But when it comes to the actual tangibility of the creation of institutions, that to me has always been Dr. York's strongest point and the point that I have been most embracive of. And so, but when we recognize that building this inside of the boundaries of the United States is going to pose a great, great threat, do you think it probable, possible, or likely that any such future construction of facilities like this would be done inside this country or perhaps outside of America?
I would like to address that, and I wanted to I'm glad that you brought that up, because here's another issue which is still under debate, in a forum where it shouldn't be. Dr. York, at the time of his arrest, was a diplomat of Liberia. They took his passport, they took everything, and then they gave him this misnomer of Dwight York. They took all of his ID, they took his credit cards, they took everything, and we're just now, because of the Civil War and everything dying down and everything getting back into order, we're just now getting all of that stuff back. April this year, his attorney from Liberia came and showed him his red diplomatic passport. And here's the weird thing. This is also in the medical transfer. When it comes to diplomats, when you start dealing with the United Nations, if you don't want someone in your country, you pronounce them non grata, which means that we don't want them, and you ship them back. This has been an ongoing thing where they're really trying not to recognize his legal name, which is Malachi York, because in doing that, you have to acknowledge everything else that comes along with it. When his attorney, Galawalu, when he came from Liberia, he had to get clearance with the BOP. So he signed in as a Liberian attorney. They have all of that there, and yet they're acting as if they don't know it. So this is another issue that's being brought up in the medical transfer, as well as his level of incarceration. He's not even on their calculation, their calculated system. He's not in his correct station. So that's being challenged. As far as plans for Africa, we know he wants to be released to go back home, because he is not only a Liberian diplomat, but he is also a citizen, and we have his citizenship number also. So he wants to go back. He's been saying this for years and years over, only the attorneys don't understand how that's possible, because they're being told that it's not possible. It can't be possible. Yet we have his daughter, who is right over there right now, who is still delegating the situation to get him repatriated back. The protocol is, if the country calls for him, then they have to send him back, and that has already taken place. But with the Department of Justice, what they're saying is that it has to be brought up in a legal proceeding, and that's what we're doing now. We are at the point we're going to have to break. We're going to continue the program this morning, as this is a special program, and we have been planning on this for some 6 weeks now. We want to make sure that as much information as is able to get out, and the voices who have not been given any other vehicle like this, other than something like LIB Radio, get the opportunity. We have a piece of audio that we have queued up from Sister Coffrey that I'm going to share here as we make our break. But before we do so, once again, the website where people can get more information, as well as, if they choose to, can support the case, so to get the attorneys to get a medical transfer of Dr. York. I don't care what anybody else
has to say about the philosophy or the doctrines or extraterrestrials or the language or whatever, the top line, bottom line, middle line for me is, here we have a case of a black man who has been a functional black leader, a black man who has been an institution builder, a black man who has convinced large numbers of young black males in the cities to put down the cocaine, put down the crack, put down the reefer, put down the liquor, pick up a book, change your life, get with this African thing, and huge numbers of young black males have followed that, and that is good for all of us. So that is primarily the strength here that I want to point out. I'm getting emails from people in the background telling me that I shouldn't be doing this program, whatever. Obviously, I disagree with them. I've thought about this many times. This is not the first program we have done on LIB Radio supporting the case of Dr. Malachi Z. York, Daruba bin Wahid, of course, who's now out of jail, but Mumia Abu Jamal, Sonny Carson, Assata Shakur, and a number of others are being held as political prisoners, prisoners of consciousness, prisoners against the self-interest of the colonizing state, and therefore I am a black man who has the ability to stand up and give vehicle and give voice to an alternative voice that cannot be heard elsewhere. If anybody has any part of that, then deal with me personally on that. So, once again, give out the website before we play this audio clip that you sent to us.
It's www.transferyork.com. Also, there is a hyperlink there of Tamaray where you will be able to see what the land looked like and see how it was literally an Egyptian city.
And has that land been, has the structure's been bulldozed now?
It's been bulldozed. It's actually called the White Plantation now. There's a gate up. And so that's what's going on with that.
Okay. We're going to take this short break. We're going to come back. LIB Radio family, don't go nowhere. Much more to go on this conversation today. You are tuned in to the LIB Radio Network. Living in Black. We are live and direct again, and we're talking to a number of members of the Nuwaubu Nation about the case of Dr. Malachi Z. York. It is a special appeal to the culturally conscious community. Dr. York's life is in peril right now because of the ill treatment he's being afforded at the Supermax prison in Florence, Colorado. I do encourage everyone to look into this Supermax prison. We have to ask the case, why is this man there? And as we look closer at the facts of the case of the trial, the confession, which was then withdrawn, and then the trial that took place, there is definitely reason for us to make a reasoned assumption that we have witnessed another COINTELPRO type of prosecution and that Dr. Malachi Z. York is a political prisoner. We're talking to members of the Nuwaubu Nation. Let me welcome Black once again, Sister Kafri, who's kind of leading our discourse and discussion today. Welcome, Black, one more time.
Yes.
Now, you were just saying you had sent me some other audio. What was the name of the piece of audio that you wanted me to cue up?
It's called Ultimate Forgiveness.
Okay, Ultimate Forgiveness. Okay, I'll have that queued up next.
Okay, it's dealing with when he could make those phone calls and he was getting out all of this information and we were recording it so we can get it out to the media. Of course, everybody just ignored us. It's talking about how he knows how the different people who testified against him were coerced into doing that. You know, some of them who he says, like Habiba Washington, he really talks about her, how he knows how they threatened to take away her children. So that put her back up against the wall to say, okay, I'll say this. And then they gave her immunity to say that she took part in it, because here's the thing, you can't say that you saw something without actually allowing it to happen. So they had to give her immunity. And she is one of the people who did recant. So that's what this next clip is about.
Okay, and that clip is rather lengthy and it's downloading. Do you want me to play that now?
Yes, just a portion so that people will be able to understand.
Okay, I'll go ahead and play this from the beginning, or should I cut in at a certain point?
You can cut in, yes.
Okay, let me just go ahead. We're going to play some of this clip entitled Ultimate Forgiveness.
I admit that I had a boyfriend. I was having sex with a boyfriend. I admit that nothing happened between me and Mr. York. And then when I got out in the street, after being taken into custody by the DFACS, but they didn't get caught. Actually, they were supposed to be taken into custody by DFACS, but they wasn't. They was put in the custody of Noel Lee Wilson, who took them off their land for 4 days before they even got to DFACS. They're trying to hide that fact also, something else we are investigating. All right? But while in that custody and after being incarcerated with them for a period of over 6 months, that person kept saying, nothing happened, nothing. I promise you they lied. And then the moment the person leaves, is forced to leave the land and get in the company of other relatives who have been a part of this financial plot against me, they try to get rich, then the person admits that, well, the only reason why I'm responding is because I had peer pressure put on me by my father, telling me that I can't go out, I can't go with them, I can't do this. And they called some friends who were two of the other people that had been picked up and released, right? And mind you, all those kids, the 5 that was taken from the land on May 8th, when they finally got into the custody and was examined and was interviewed and critiqued and cross-examined, it came out in the long run where it came out where they had nothing wrong with them. And a judge called Species in, I think it was in Putnam County, right, actually released them and said, we find no trace of molestation or physical abuse in any form or fashion. So they've actually just dropped it, you know what I mean, threw it out. But they kept one of the kids in custody, named Johnson, because they wanted him to turn over on his mother or on me. And he persisted all the way up until they put him on a stand in Brunswick. Still, after 2 years of being separated from us, they put him on a stand. He still said, nothing happened between me and my mother and father. Nothing happened. I never was molested by anybody. I don't know what they were trying to do to me. You know what I'm saying? So I think that what he may have forgotten while he along the way is after being with a person every day from sun up to sundown, you get to know that person. You know something about the person. And one thing I know about him from being around him is that he's easy swayed. The kids worked on his emotions and they turn him against him. He wants to believe it because it's already out. He's disgruntled. He had problems with members. When I got to the South and I started driving for myself and me and him wasn't socializing every day. Our friendship weakened. He went out. He got involved with my brother Abdul Salam's wife called Holland and remarried and had other children by another family, but he still lingered in Georgia. So what I noticed about all these people who supposedly followed me down there, of course, many of them was here before I got here, all the people with the attitudes don't seem to leave, though. When they leave, why don't they return back to where they came from, New York or the Bronx or Queens or Jersey or whatever other state they come out of? They all seem to stay near me some kind of way. You know what I'm saying? So, yes, I was kind of disappointed about it, but I understood. I know him because just like he knows me. And him knowing me, he should know better than that. And I know him to know what they did. They worked on his emotions. He's a very emotional person, so he broke down and cried. And at that point, he would have said anything that the feds wanted him to say. They could have used him any way they want because he would have been thinking, well, I want revenge. You follow? Yeah. So that was a disappointment, but I understood it. I still love him. He's still my friend, always will. But I know he understands his children more better than I do because he had to beat one of them and throw one of them out. In fact, he's the one we had a problem with. I think the son's name was Eddie, and we have the actual records where Eddie's in his first statement, they call him Khalid Abdullah Muhammad, right? In his first records, he mentioned to the government that he was first molested between 6 and 9 by his own brothers, and his father beat the heck out of him. And we had a stack of witnesses out there who had witnessed the beating and had witnessed the conversation between them in Brooklyn, how he beat the kids, but what he was doing. We had other people that was part of it and testifying of their involvement. We even had a boyfriend, an ex-boyfriend of Khalid, who was willing to testify and come in and say that there was him and him was having sexual involvement way before I even knew who Eddie was in Brooklyn, New York. But the judge, of course, blocked that part of the information out. We have it. We have the records. We have the documents. We have the available witnesses that will all testify. But they put a block on that for the time being, of course. So yes, it affected me in the case. But he'll always know I'm a friend. I'll always love him. I mean, I'm hurt by it, but I'll overcome it. That's all part of it. I understand what the scripture says.
Right.
Let's go back live again. We have a number of people on a conference call talking about the case and appeal to support the new trial, radiothon to raise funds for this case. Donations will go towards paying money for attorney visits, research, upcoming hearings, and the trial, and attempting to get a medical transfer of Dr. Malachi Z. York out of the Florence, Colorado administrative supermax prison and to get him into a place where he can be given much better medical treatment. I was aware, and anybody who wants to respond, I was aware early on that Dr. York, while in prison there in Georgia, was not even being allowed to get the food that he was used to being able to eat. Can you talk to us more about his own particular nutritional needs and how those were not being met? And we have a number of voices.
Yes.
Anybody who want to respond to that, please speak up.
Yes. I will let the brother Ibrahim respond to that one. He could better answer that.
Brother Ibrahim? Brother Ibrahim, are you with us?
Yes.
You would like to respond to the inquiry about Dr. Malachi Z. York's nutritional needs and the conflicts he's had just getting the proper food?
Well, there's always diet is essential to any person's health. So we have a certain way we eat, and when dealing with his angioedema, he has a certain diet, and he can't get that proper diet in there. So what he did, was living off of his commissary, like raw nuts that you can buy off of commissaries and things like that, and certain type of food that are healthy because because he's afraid, first of all, that he might be poisoned also in there, So there's a certain way we eat and a certain way he's supposed to eat to help his health. And they stopped him from able to go into his commissary or, and things like that, as far as what he eats and everything. That right there, I'm not in there with him. I don't know exactly why, I don't know about that, but he's supposed to have a certain type of health the way that he eats, and he try to do it through commissary and not eating what they serve in there. That's about all I can do about, talk about his diet, in there. I don't know.
Okay. Sister Cuffrey, there have been a number of voices who were supposed to be a part of the conversation. Have we heard from everyone, or is there still someone who's been on hold that has not had a chance to speak their piece?
I did hear another brother who came in, our brother Ibrahim, if you wanted to bring him on.
Okay. Who are you talking about, Amir?
Brother Amir, are you there with us? Well, while we're waiting on Amir, we got more emails that have come in. Let me just share an email that's come in. This email comes to us from Brother Jaleel. He writes, Brother Keedy, please do not defend Dr. York. He is a confessed child molester. He admitted it himself. He was asked in open court if his confession was forced, and he said no. The brother had top-notch legal representation of the kind that the average black man could not afford. I have problem with anyone that represents himself as a leader of black people and then admitting to child molestation. He should have given up his life before admitting to something his followers claim isn't true. Peace from Brother Jaleel. Anybody want to respond to that email from Brother Jaleel?
Well, that sounds like to me, that sounds like a disgruntled person right there. Like, again, it goes back to threat, duress, and coercion. Mm-hmm. You follow? When you have, your children, as like you heard in the Isle of Patmos tape or CD that you was playing prior, but coming back on, he was talking about them having Esau, which is my brother, my younger brother, in their custody for 2 years, questioning him, and his wife, locked up. So when you're under that type of stress, threat, duress, and coercion, you're gonna have to, what's the smartest thing? You or your family, you would choose you. You know what I'm saying? You would take the downfall, and that's what happened right now. That's what happened with my father.
So after this confession, were others let out of jail as a direct consequence of that so-called confession?
Oh yeah, definitely. They were let out, and children were brought back to their family. Follow? So, yes. Of course, they were let out.
So, again, let's just be clarified. Because when I first was looking at the case, that was one of the most disturbing things about the case. Yet, at that time, I had no information, as you're sharing right now, that people had been kidnapped, that were being held hostage, and that Dr. Malachi Z. York, in sacrificing himself for the others, gave this public confession, which was later, once everyone else was freed up, he recanted that and then wanted to go to trial. Is that correct?
Yes. Not only that, during the confession, they had him on the wrong medication, etc. Also, so if you look at the tape, and they snuck the tape inside of the court when they were supposed to, when supposed to be no media there, and took the picture and then put it on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
So, to defame, to character assassinate my father. You follow? So, so that is inclusive.
Yeah.
So yes, he had, they had plenty of people that he raised from, in their custody. Parents being threatened, to never see their children. People are being threatened with their life, their livelihood, their jobs. People are losing jobs just because they was a part of the wu-nuwaupu nation. Everything. He was going through so much. So of course he had to, take the downfall. He had to take that side, go with it for now, If that wasn't the case, if he really felt that he was guilty, he wouldn't be still fighting right now. He got them out of the situation and then start fighting again.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that is,
also,
I agree at face value that is a noble self-sacrifice in order that children and parents could be reunited. Sister Catherine?
I wanted to, yes, and add to that, to the brother, I just want you to really think about, if you've never been and if you've never gone through the judicial system, find somebody on the street. The first thing they do is tell you to cop out. And that's exactly, he said on those different tapes that we have, that we sent to Brother Keating, he tells of how the attorneys just kept telling him, you're not going to win this. You're going to have to cop out, because if you don't take a plea agreement while it's being offered, you're going to get much more time. And the agreement was for 15 years. And I don't know if the brother was following the case, but the judge that was on the case had to recuse himself, because he put himself in the middle of the case by saying the plea deal was for 15 years and he would get out. But the judge said, no, that's not enough time. So our lawyers challenged that, and he recused himself. That's how Judge Ashley Royal came on the case. Also, to add to that, he has on those tapes, he said they were putting black bags over his head, handcuffing him to the bed rails in the prison, making him stand all types of, keeping him up. They said that night of the plea deal, that first of all, he wasn't even in the room when everything really went down, and then they had him up they would let him go to sleep and would wake him up every hour on the hour. Then they was telling him, this is from his own mouth, and Brother Keating, you have it, he said they were telling him that all of the female defendants that was involved in the case, he said they're going through the same thing. You know how they play interrogation games, and this is what they did to him. So he said, okay, and the deal was this. All of the women would get out. They said, if you first, and this is something I know people ain't going to believe or whatever, do you know the first thing that they said to him was, if you deny everything that you wrote was real, we'll let you go? So they were first trying to trick him into saying that on screen.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first thing. And he said no to that. And then they came back with, okay, well, if you say this, you'll get 15 years. The women, they'll get out and they'll go scot-free or whatever, and you'll take the fall because we really want you. So he took that plea deal. He took it. Now, should that have been on TV? No. But, of course, you have to remember who you're dealing with. Mm-hmm. And remember the vision that was put forth. No matter what nobody say, that Tamaray, that land was for everybody. Don't believe the hype, nobody could come up there. That land, I came on there. Who am I? I came from New York and just went to the land. Mm-hmm. Anybody could go up there, and it was for the cultural enrichment of the people. And the next thing that I wanted to deal with was the zoning. We had that land, yeah, but we couldn't build on that land because every single time from the time Sheriff Howard Richard-Sills got in Eatonton, he has, for some reason, I don't know how you can be a sheriff and then get on the zoning board, the zoning planning board. Because that's what he did. Wherever we were, that's where we found Sheriff Seals. And he made sure that we could not build. What we put in for was for it to be an Egyptian theme park. It was supposed to be a haven for us, not us Nuwaubians as an organization, for us as a black people to revisit the days of a Black Wall Street. That was the point. To open up franchises up there. It wasn't going to just be pyramids and sticks and all of that. We had 476 acres. That was going to be a community of whoever. He even leased out the land and said, if you have trailers and you want to move up here, and at the time I know I couldn't afford it because it was real. It was land prices and you had to pay for your trailer. But it was like, come up here and build and live 4 of them.
Conference recording cannot begin at this time.
So that we can have a stable economy. So this is the different things, and I understand the frustration that people feel. Why do you feel that frustration? It's because it's not promoted what was really going on. All you hear is, he pled guilty, and that's why people feel the way they do. You got to know there's more to this. Just by the fact of what he was doing, by what we all were doing, you have to know it was more to it.
All right. We are continuing. We've got more emails that have come in, and another comment, and I'm sharing them as they come in. Brother Randolph writes on the subject of unorganized organization. I don't have a question, but I would like to make a quick comment. This presentation by the Nuwaubians is a clear example as to why no progress has been made in the case. There is no real organized infrastructure within this organization. There are too many cooks in the kitchen when 1 or 2 speakers should have been selected to speak as one voice for the organization. That from Brother Randolph. Anybody want to respond to that critique?
Yeah, I would like to respond to that. First of all, who said that we are an organization? Who said that we were a corporate organization? The problem with our people is that we judge each other Caucasian eyes, through European eyes. We're people here just like you, just like any other grassroots organization who is trying to free somebody who has touched our hearts. We're not here as some corporate board who have the technology to make all of the background noises go out. So I'm sorry if we don't come across as the correct and most perfect facade. I'm not here to fake anything for anybody. We've got a couple of people across Georgia who just come on this phone and let the truth be known so that we can fight for this man, for the reality that he needs to be sent back to Liberia. He needs to be sent back to Africa, which the country is calling for. Now, can we change what you may hear in the background? No. I'm sorry. I really am, but we don't have an office building. I'm in my home, okay? I had to get a babysitter to do this phone call. You have other people who are in bookstores who are doing the very best that they can do, as any black person in America can do, is just their best.
Okay. I think that's a reasonable response to the situation. And, I do agree. I mean, we are doing the best we can with what is available to us. Sometimes people have done remarkable things, incredible things, with very limited resource. Sometimes people have done remarkable, incredible things, organizing those who are considered to be by others the lowest in a social economic caste system, caste order. This is one of the things that I have appreciated about the mission of Dr. Malachi Z. York, is that he never did turn away from those who were considered by others to be at the bottom of society. And that he did do a good job of effectively organizing among them in a very similar manner, and same manner, that Dr. Martin Luther King was able to effectively organize those at the bottom of the caste system. That Malcolm X was able to effectively organize those at the bottom of the caste system. Huey P. Newton, Marcus Messiah Garvey, so many others. Mary McLeod Bethune. We could talk about the sisters, Ida Wells Barnett, who were able to effectively organize those at the bottom of the caste system. So we're going to just do the best we can with the best resources we can bring together. There will always be points where you look at what we do and to be able to criticize our techniques, our methodologies, or our skills and competency. But the thing that people have to realize, we're operating with heart. And history has shown that anytime you get a collective, an organization of people who will operate in a common mission with heart, they're going to be winners. in quite a number of their engagements. Who have we not heard from here this morning? Or this afternoon, I guess I should say. The time right now, 10:17 a.m. on the West Coast. That makes it 1:17 p.m. for our East Coast listeners. We're live and direct on Friday, the 29th of February, the last day of the month, continuing African Hour story. And now we are telling our story about the case, the political prisoner, Dr. Malachi York, and how it is critically necessary for right now, in order to save the man's life, that he be transferred to a place where he can get proper medical attention, proper nutrition. Again, I don't know whether anybody here on this panel is prepared to discuss it, but not too long ago, another person who was held as a political prisoner for his organizing people at the bottom passed away, became an ancestor, and that was the case of, doggone it, right night. His name was in my mind just a second ago, Yahweh Ben Yahweh. Anybody familiar with the case of Yahweh Ben Yahweh?
No, actually, I know that I'm not. I'm not. I think that came before I became conscious.
Okay.
You know, I really do think
well, there are really quite a bit of parallels between these two cases. In the case of Yahweh Ben Yahweh organizing black Hebrew Israelites, he was able to successfully order people at the absolute bottom of the social economic caste there in South Florida. And by the time they were organized, they were owning apartment buildings and temples and restaurants. They had amassed, from my understanding, perhaps a real estate portfolio in the tens of millions of dollars. And he was providing lots of jobs for black people there, as well as getting them off of drugs, off of alcohol, and cleaning up their lives and putting families together. And he was charged with murder, and others of his organization were charged with murders. They were acquitted of these charges of murder, and then turned around and charged with conspiracy to commit the very murders that they had been acquitted of, and then railroaded into prison, federal prison, on the conspiracy charges, and then not let out of prison until just months before his death of some degenerative disease that he contracted while he was in prison.
And this is the formula. That's the formula. So it's hard for me as a person, and I want to share this with the listening audience. When I first heard of these charges, I didn't know what to think, but I didn't know the man, but I knew his heart and I knew his words. And I said, you know what? It's more to this. It's more to this. We didn't find out what happened in Florida until 2 years later. That's when we found out. But we was like, no, we just can't. And you know how many people, you have some people who don't come around anymore. You really do. But like I said, there are thousands of us who are still together. We still have the link to the Barbados. We still have the link to the Netherlands, to London. We still have the link to all of the different bookstores. And the message is still getting out. Just of love for self and kind. It's still getting out. So it's hard. It's so hard for me because this is what kept me here until I could see the evidence. Because I'm like, this is what they do. This is what they do. They take down anybody. And another thing I want to convey to the people is we really have to start understanding our blessing. Mm-hmm. We really don't know. If you look at the landscape of African American people, black people, there are those individuals like that have been named earlier in this show who come with a particular message. We don't understand that those are our prophets because they are professing something new. And we continuously allow them to be railroaded, destroyed, shot, and we do nothing about it. Nothing about it. It's like we keep talking, like I'm in Atlanta, and there's so many different organizations that are trying to pool their resources and come up and come together. But when you have when you have those resources in a particular body of a person that comes from every generation, and there's someone new to the next generation, we as a whole, as a collective, we don't cling to that person. We don't make sure that that person is safe because of the information. And it's because we don't know our power. We don't know our ancestry. We don't know that every 100 years a reformer comes. That's written on the walls, too. We don't know that. And you don't have to believe me. Just look at Dr. Martin Luther King. Look at what he did. Mm-hmm. Just look at what all of these other different leaders did. Look at what Farrakhan did. Look at what he's still doing. He's holding it down. Look at all of that. All of them should be looked at. And even if when you look at the story of Asaru Shakur and the Black Panthers and how they shot her in the back and left her on the ground to die, do you really think that these people are above coercing and forcing children into saying and forcing adults into saying that he molested them? Do you really think that it's so far-fetched that they put black bags over his head, that they put him in a hot cell, then in a cold cell, and then in cells with rats, murderers in the prison, and that they wasn't trying to kill him? Is it so far-fetched?
Well, we do have a lot of other cases to prove that this is being done. We've got a caller who's been holding on. Can we take this call? Caller, welcome to the program. Your name and where you're calling from.
Yeah, peace. This is Brother Mustafa from Columbia, South Carolina.
Greetings to you, Brother Mustafa. What's on your mind today?
Yeah, my question was, I caught bits and pieces of the show, but I was wondering, did any of the celebrities that were part of the mission, have they contribute or tried to step up and fend for Dr. York?
Okay. Yes. Have there been any outspoken voices out there, so-called celebrities?
As a matter of fact, on the website, if people would, if you could, Brother T, put that on, Farrakhan said something very beautiful about Dr. York. At the website, there's a sound bite there. Okay. As soon as you click it on, so yes, there have been people who have come forward. If you go to YouTube and you type in Dr. York, you got Africa Bambaataa who came to the land and said, yeah, we know that our brother is innocent. You have Al Sharpton who came to the land and spoke one time because they were trying to prevent a Waco because Seals kept going to them talking about and going to the governors. That's why they all came down, because he kept mentioning a Waco. And as a matter of fact, when they came with refrigerated trucks and body bags. They was planning to kill everybody because they thought, because of what Seals was telling them, that we were stockpiling weapons. Nothing happened. We didn't have any guns or anything like that. So, yeah, there are a lot of people who do support, and there are some people who they know or think, like such people as Wesley Snipes, who was just in the media, who they linked back to the Nuwaubians and said that he was going to buy, his brother was going to buy land across from the land to have a martial arts center. They call a military, paramilitary training. No, it was going to be more land. He was going to live there, and he was going to have a martial arts center up there, Egyptian martial arts center, because we know that came from us and our people. So there are those who do support. We have Erykah Badu, and there are others who have come to the land who do know the realities of it, and there are some that we don't choose to mention because we don't want them to be attacked, which is what happens, as you can see in the case of Wesley Snipes.
Yes. Did you have a follow-up comment?
I think that's it. I appreciate it. I appreciate the show. I've been studying for a while too, so I just it's good that you're doing this and putting it out there.
Yeah. Let me ask you, caller, how if you don't mind, how old are you?
I'm 27.
Okay. I had earlier made the case that among the many things that I really appreciated that Dr. Malachi Z. York was able to do was able to convince large numbers of young brothers and young sisters to come into the culture through his writings, through his teachings, and through some of these esoteric mysteries that were being presented. Do you agree with my particular statement that a large number of young people were brought into black cultural consciousness, African cultural consciousness, because of Dr. York's teachings?
Oh, yes. I mean, it transformed me. I was 14. My sister was 17. I know plenty of guys in my area that came to class that, until they getting in trouble, we would be in the store talking about the books, talking about Farrakhan, talking about Noble Drew Ali, so it was very transformational for us. And also, when I was there, I tied in a lot of older people who've been in there for 30 years. I'm in constant contact with a sister that's been in there since the 70s, So, it goes far. You have a large generation, but the key that keys into young people, and it gets us into something other than what's out there in the norm on TV.
All right. Thank you so much for calling in. Thank you for tuning into LIB Radio and LIB TV today. And I hope and I really encourage yourself as well as many other young people to stick with us as a family. We are continuing that blazing legacy of building on the strengths of our story and our intellectual transformation of our own selves.
Yeah, I contribute. I'm planning on giving you something soon, so keep up the good work. I know you're struggling, but, people are listening, you know what I mean? And just keep up the good work. Keep that energy going, and it'll pay off.
Thank you so much.
Okay, take care.
And we do appreciate the people who are listening, who are taking the time out to donate and to call in with comments, whether you for or against. At least you're listening. At least you're taking the time out to just weigh it. Whether however way it goes, we appreciate it, because for all this long time, we can't get on anyone's show. They will not let us on.
Yeah, I do understand.
Beginning of this to get onto Montel Williams, we've sent emails to try and get onto Tom Joyner as well as Oprah Winfrey. We've sent all these things out years ago, and we can't get anything.
Yeah, I do understand. I understand why they are so threatened by this. The ones who allow them to rise to the cream in the cream in the coffee cup, and I do mean that as a larger metaphorical joke. They allow them to rise as the cream in the coffee cup. They will be taken out. They will be taken out of their position by allowing these type of strong and radical voices to come to the surface. A couple of things. 111. I can't remember what that was. But you had mentioned that there was a piece of audio. I believe, is it right at the beginning of the TransferYork.com website? There was a piece of audio right there.
I did. I sent it actually. When you log on to it, you can hear it. As soon as you put in www.transferyork.com, it comes on.
Okay. Well, let me just play a minute or so of that, and we'll share just a little bit of that, and then we'll come right back.
It's a soundbite. It's not. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's play that soundbite right now.
King by some secretary, that's what they'll do. They'll imprison you, and then they'll create lies to turn your own people against you. They'll persecute you after righteous name's sake. The same way I'm talking to you, they're going to come after me eventually. Believe it. They're going to say, that man is too dangerous. I don't like him. Let's make some lies up on him. Let's turn his people against him. Let's imprison him. And if we can, let's kill him, because his people won't help him anyway. And they'll try it. And I'll be at the mercy of the devil, because people say, well, won't Allah step in and help you? And I say, did he step in and help John the Baptist? And the answer would be no. He will not intervene at that point. You understand?
And we continue with Live and Direct. We are talking with the Nuwaubian Nation here today. That piece featuring, of course, the voice we first heard was Dr. York himself, as well as followed by Mr. Farrakhan. Yes? Was someone trying to say something? Oh, okay. Let me just ask anyone on the panel, and Brother Ibrahim, we haven't heard from you for a minute. Currently, there is the political glitter, which has so many African Americans bedazzled that there's quite the likelihood that a mulatto candidate will be the first self-claimed African American to be in the White House. There's been a controversy that's brewed up in the last few days of the rather passionate denunciation of Minister Farrakhan by candidate Senator Barack Obama. And despite the fact that Farrakhan had nothing but good things to say about Barack Obama's candidacy. Let me just ask a kind of general question, and I'm going to try and say it without cussing. What the hell is going on with black leadership in this country?
Your guess is really mine. I mean, really. You know,
Yeah.
Who knows? Yeah, who knows?
Well,
Who knows?
it appears to be a dog and pony show. You have Tavis Smiley's...
It's all political.
Yeah, you have Tavis Smiley's stated of, like, race, the conflict of Obama showing up, not showing up. Minister Farrakhan has been featured on that several years in a row. Tavis Smiley featuring the same old assimilationist-type voices, etc. All that to say this, I think that this is a time when we, if we're in our right mind, are going to have to look at what they have called radical black leadership and ask two questions. One is, what are these so-called radicals saying that is a threat to the system and its association with us? And two, how many of these radical voices themselves are saying contradictory things?
Greetings, brother. Can I just interject real quickly here?
Yes, and who is this?
This is Brother Benjamin. I'm actually from London, England, and I've been a student under Malachi Z. York for 18 years.
Greetings, Brother Benjamin. Welcome to the conversation.
Yeah, you touched on a vital point, and you see, the situation is that our black leaders are using the celebrity to liberate our people, and that's not going to work. And why they were so concentrated on taking Malachi Z. York off the street was because of what he was teaching. He was liberating the people and of their culture, from their language, from spiritual practices, and that was bucking on their system, which many leaders have come in the past and have upraised us to a certain level. But the difference with the Farrakhan's or the Yahweh ben Yahweh, it was, okay, we become Muslims or we become Hebrews, we pray, we fast, then what? And they didn't have the answers. They didn't have the answers. And Farrakhan and the rest of those so-called black leaders ain't going to have the answers. As Malachi Z. York had the answers and the vision to take the people forward, that's why they had to take him off the street. And to know how corrupt the government is, I mean, the government themselves, or ex-CIA members or ex-FBI members, they are on, you can Google on the internet right now, and they will tell you they've got programs of people that are trained to get confessions out of you, of crimes that you haven't committed. Mm-hmm. These are set up programs that they have in place for us to attack our black leaders that are like Malachi Z. York. And it's quite simple. When anyone raises up amongst us that are teaching us that everything we've been taught in our educational system is a lie, everything that they've given us for our health on the medical system is poisoning us. Anyone who comes up and buckles against the system like that, then they're a threat, because what they're doing now is lifting up the consciousness of our people, from the children to the adults. And what was taking place was that we were taking all these titles and, you know, what they have given us through history and going back to our original culture, which is as known as Egypt or Tamare. And that was a threat to them. So we no longer wanted their system. And instead of us having hate of self, we started to love ourselves. We wanted to know about ourselves. We wanted to know our doctrine. We wanted to know how we prayed, what food we ate, how we dressed. And it was a total opposite of their nature, total opposite. And doing that in their back garden, then you could see the results of what it's caused. They came, they took the land, they kidnapped the master teacher, and, you know, they have programs on the Montel Williams shows and everything, you know, just really slandering us or making us look like a cult, black military organization, all these things which we didn't propagate or promote in any shape, form, or fashion. But all of these black so-called leaders today, you got to ask them the question, what are they doing for us and our children? Are they teaching our culture? Are they liberating us? Are they taking us back? Or are they putting us further into the system to become slaves again? That's what the question needs to be asked. What are you doing? Why are you still standing in this society or this system knowing the history of these people and what they've done to us? Why are we still sending our children to their schools? Why are we still going for their medical aid or their help in their hospitals? Why are we still shopping in their grocery stores?
Why are we still doing all these things that many leaders from Marcus Garvey, Noble Drew Ali, all the way down to Malachi Z. York for years has been saying to segregate, to separate, get our own stuff, have love of self. Why is this not being propagated anymore? And if someone does it, they get arrested. And just to address a question that a brother said earlier on about Malachi Z. York pleading guilty, you got to understand that this same government and this same media are the ones that told us that we were slaves and nothing but slaves, and our history started only 400 years ago. So, you know, are you going to pick and choose what you want to accept as truth from these people or a lie? And it's sad because we're not researching, we're not studying, and we're not opening up our minds and letting go of the fear that we have. We're not slave babies. You know, and when one amongst us comes and raises our consciousness to that level, it's sad that we don't even recognize a brother or a sister that is helping to liberate our race and against the government. And that's all I got to say.
Thank you so much for that wonderful comment. And also, I don't know whether you were aware, we do have a London telephone line in case you are having to call across the pond or whatever. Our London telephone number for you to stay in contact with your LIB radio family is 0208 002 9096. So anybody in the UK who wants to talk to us today, you can call that number. Anybody else in the United States, and we've got just a few more minutes with our conversation, so you're going to have to get your call or your email in immediately. 323-902-2919. You can call us toll-free at 800-842-1409, as well as we can email info@libradio.net. Two emails I want to share with you. First comes to us from Brother Edward Johnson. Ed writes, and he's in Pittsburgh. And it's rather lengthy. I'm going to read this rather fast all the way through. Peace, Kitty, and guests. Okay. So here we go again. Back to Amos Wilson. Quote, there are some of us who can better translate hieroglyphics, unquote. That's our problem, debating about the crust of the pie instead of feeling. Many people like Tavis Smiley and the rest of his Boule posse are able to exist because we are still trying to discredit each other. Please, let us stick to freeing our cultural political prisoners and keeping our most important cultural institutions going. I'm a broke brother that left the finance of the streets to become more into my people. None of it has put a penny in my pocket, but discussion about who is right and who is wrong at a time when we are being attacked from all sides is bullshit. And I'm afraid this is the reason why most of the youth don't come the way of the conscious brothers and sisters. Table talk and pillow talk. Yo, conscious mothers need to get a grip on what's going into consciousness means and represents to the youth. It means, in the eyes of the closed-minded but curious African-American child, as we sometimes portray it, disorganized and argumentative amongst the cultural, big-minded elite. Hopefully you will get where I'm coming from. This kind of talking leads to a wasteful million-man march. Oh yeah, I've read all the books and read hieroglyphs to English, Arabic, Hebrew. I don't speak water, gas, land, and food. But Keedy speaks media. Peace from Ed J. in Pittsburgh. Young brother making a very passionate statement, which I think the gist of it is, it's really about let's unify around the things that we can agree on, that we do have in common, that we know are critical needs that have to be taken care of. And once we, in the culturally conscious community, demonstrate the effectiveness of our unity, that the youth will naturally be attracted to us instead of the glam, the glitter that they see on the box that lies. Anybody else want to remark on Brother Ed J's comment? Okay, if not, then let's go to the next email from Brother Eric Palmer. Just a quick comment. This nation... Yes, someone responding?
No, go ahead. Yeah, I was muted. I started talking. Yeah, I do appreciate the brother sending in the email, and that is that's one of the things that we've always said, that we all need to come on and work together. And of course, since we are here on behalf of Dr. York, I will mention that he has reached out to many different organizations, and they have sat at round tables, and those things were actually in the process of happening, which is another reason why they did what they did. He had Jesse Jackson out there, and we have pictures of Jesse Jackson wearing a fez.
Oh,
so
boy.
all of that was starting to come together. A lot of us joined Rainbow Push. A lot of us joined the Action Network. And I like right now, I've joined the effort of Brother Al Sharpton that he has on his website of coming to the call of anyone who needs it. Me and my husband, we sent in our $10, and we're like, yes, we're with anybody who is with the progression of the people and of our nation, of humanity. Our people, yes, but of humanity. Everyone has the right to have freedom and to live without restrictions on your happiness of your cultural existence.
Another quick email from Brother Eric. And we're almost out of the program, but we've got 2 more emails we're going to read before we go forward. Just a quick comment. This nation has a history of railroading and setting our people up. I say it is a must that our people consider the history of this judicial system before joining in and helping this system persecute individuals it has targeted. That from Brother Eric in Florida.
And Brother Kitty, I did send you an interview with Dr. York if you wanted to cue that up. So that way people, because you mentioned, I just sent it to you, you did mention the political climate. And that's one thing that our people don't really understand, which is one of the things that Dr. York was telling us. Like I said, again, it is for him. So I mentioned his name as many times as I am, because it is for him. And because other leaders have said it too. He's not the first one. We have a whole list of people who said back to Africa. And that's one of the things that he definitely endorses. How is it possible that we have all this money and we've been so programmed that water that separates us is like out of sight, out of mind, and that it doesn't exist because of these borders that have been put in place. Not only the funny thing about borders for land, once you tell me that after I step over here, I'm in another place, and you tell me I'm so many thousands of miles away, you also limited my mind. So now there's a border on my mind, and I'm in my home, and I'm just dealing with my own personal finances. But how is it possible when you got people that are dying right now in Africa, all over in many different countries, and we're here, and we're talking about bling bling, and we're driving around in these just ridiculously expensive cars. I'm not saying don't be comfortable, don't live like the royalty that you are, but at the same time, you have got to recognize the power that our dollar has. And as long as we keep being consumers, because we're not producing anything, as long as we keep being consumers for everybody on this planet and not producing for our own self and sacrificing, because right now would be a birth of a to sacrifice all the luxury that you don't even need to put into a pot to actually eat individually. I'm tired. We're saying collectively, each individual has to make decisions to make that difference in their environment, to collectively make that change for the planet. And that's what's going on. As far as the political climate with Obama, he knows that. And he's playing into that. They have statistics and demographics of what people want, and he's catering to the people. I only hope that he can deliver. That's my only hope, because the way it's looking now is he is going to win. Now, the whole thing is, can he deliver? And he has the ability to deliver. He has the ability to put other things right. As far as the budget is concerned, once you change one thing, it topples into the next. Healthcare topples into homelessness, and that may take time. But as far as these newfangled laws, these things like the Patriot Act and all these other different things, he has the opportunity to change these things. Now, will he? That still remains to be seen. And, of course, it's all still political. Him saying he doesn't want Farrakhan support, that is political. He wants Farrakhan support, because with that comes people. But he has to say it the way. And even in doing that, it's a little, because you can't do who you want to be. He's running in this campaign. So it's really worth it.
Yeah, good point you made. Real quickly, last couple of emails that have come in. Let's share. We got one more we're going to share before we go forward. This from Sharif Hakim. Kitty, I find it disturbing to hear people defending a race traitor like Dr. York. I don't care what nobody says. Dr. York had a responsibility to the people as a leader to protect our most prized assets, our children. I hope he perishes in prison for his transgressions. That from Sharif Hakim.
and he has a right to how he feels. What can I say to that? I, on the other hand, have looked at the evidence, have sat with some of the people, and I know that what they're saying is not true. So we'll go off of fact and what you can find and sitting in a courtroom, or we'll go off of emotional propaganda, media propaganda, who have programmed us like mice in a maze on how to respond to different things. The stimulus, they told you how to respond. When you watch Michael, they didn't just try to take away that man's football career. They egged it on. They brought up the issue, can he ever come back? Well, no, I don't think that he'll ever be able to come back. And in the court of public opinion, crucified him. He can't even after 18 months. They say, well, if he's only going to get 18 months, he might let that happen. So judge the right to deny him that. Why? Why? Because that is a dark brother, and a whole bunch of children look up to him. And he got money. And if you look into the history, which I didn't get an opportunity to do, but then if you look into the history, a lot of these stars, like they're bringing them up on steroid charges, a lot of them were doing major donations. A lot of them, like you got Wyclef Jean, who they're saying is on steroids. That boy ain't on no steroids. If that was even brought up, they're looking into the rap industry, and I'm going to tell you this. Why are they doing this? Because we have money. And in every generation, they bring up something. Every generation, when we had money, either a drug came out, you have the 60s with the Black Panthers. All they were trying to do was clean up the community, and you had surveillance on them that made them bring out guns. They weren't talking about no guns in the beginning. This is nothing new.
All right. We are going to have to begin to wrap it up. I did just download the interview, so as we wrap it up, I'll go ahead and play that interview. This also was another track that you had sent, Can't We Get Along? There was an audio track, a musical track, I believe, you had sent.
Right.
Okay,
and you could play the interview, because that definitely deals with a lot of political movement, and that's not that long.
Well, as we go to wrap up this conversation, the live conversation, and then we'll go to play the interview, let's once again give the people the 30-second soundbite on the fundraiser, where they can go to make a donation, and what specifically are people being asked to donate to.
Specifically, they're being asked to donate for the Colorado medical transfer case, because like I said before, he is being medically tortured. That's the bottom line to it. They're not giving him the correct medicine. When he was first put into prison, I'm talking about when he was first taken into custody, you had his doctor who submitted a letter saying that he has hereditary angioedema, which can cause asphyxiation, and he can die within 5 minutes. They have that, and we've successfully subpoenaed those documents. We have those documents, and we're fighting the BOP with their own documents. So with just right there, just on that alone, we're asking for support, because not only is it happening, but now we have proof that it's happening. And people can look at that case. It's on www.transferyork.com. Also on that same page, we're asking for people to please donate. It's very expensive. If anybody had to have a lawyer, it's $250 an hour. Okay, very, very expensive. And now we're coming up on funding an actual trial that's coming up. So that's what this is all about.
All right. The website
is www.transferyork.com. And whatever anyone can send in, like I said, we're not an organization. We're Nuwaubians, we're Black people, we're African, we're your sisters and brothers. And for 6 years now, we're still together and we're still fighting for him, which COINTELPRO didn't expect. Why? Because he always said, all I'm doing is giving these people information of self, and they're going to take it. It doesn't take me. So they're trying to put him as this head of this organization, and it was never like that.
Okay. I just want to thank everybody else who served on the panel today. I don't know if anybody wanted to just make a closing statement or so, 5 or 10, 20-second closing statement.
And I did want to thank you also for giving us this opportunity to get the word out. And there's so much stuff that we really didn't even talk about everything, which is really sad because we got from 1993 up until today of all of the different things. Like we do have an article just briefly that talks about how, like I said, the FBI came. You have Rick Ross, right, on www.rickross and put in wu-nuwaupu, and he has all of the articles from the whole case. And there's an article where it states that Sheriff Howard Richard Stills never told the governor at the time, Roy Barnes, that he was suspecting. He didn't want molestation. He didn't want to tell the GBI because he says he felt that the GBI was infiltrated or compromised. Because, yes, some FBI agents did come on the land, and some GBI agents did come on the land and fish because they saw nothing was wrong. And, in fact, the Nubians that did come up there, they saw the pride in self, and it was no criminal act there. He's the one that kept saying Waco, and he was trying to do that. So with that, I'm just so grateful for the listeners for tuning in and for staying and sending their positive messages because we really need it. We really need it. It's not easy holding on.
Yes, I do definitely agree with you. And we are holding on to all those great things. I want to thank you so much for your effort in putting this together, Sister Coffrey. And do keep us informed as the case goes along, whether Dr. York will be able to successfully be transferred to another facility to be able to get medical treatment. Let me just ask you one more question before we move forward. There was originally talk that his sentence would have been maybe some 15 years and that he would be eligible for parole. Later, after the conviction, I believe he was sentenced to 135 years. What is the status about Dr. Malachi York, his age, as well as any anticipation of a parole date?
Oh, well, I don't know about a parole date. I know he's supposed to be in there for 135 years. That's pretty much all I can say. I do know that people across the nation in these Catholic churches have been charged with the same charge, and they don't get 135 years, nor do they. This is a realization for people who are listening. Why put a child molester in federal supermax, 80x max, where you put terrorists, threats to national security? Think about that. Think about what he was really telling the people, that Georgia is ours, Native American. This is our land. He was teaching us that about the treaties and how they're still in place with Morocco that protects the Moors. They're still in place. Can you imagine what we could do with the funding of all of our people if we came together and really pushed? Crazy. All this land is ours.
Well, on that note, we are going to have to move forward. I'm going to play the audio track that you sent first, and then when we close out this program, I'm going to go to and then play the interview with Dr. York, which I believe the interview is going to last about 7 minutes. Thank you so much for everything that you've done today.